And welcome everyone to another episode of Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and tonight we are joined in with three amazing guests. We got two returning guests and a new guest. So, Mike, welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys? Mike here. Good to be back.
Yep. OddHour, welcome back.
Happy to be back. Hello, everybody.
And for the first time, we got CRCalkos. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yep. So, tonight, the discussion is going to be about multiplayer gaming. So this show is all about different discussions each week, different topics, and we can get very passionate about what we like, and it's all in good fun. But before we actually get started, Mike, since you've been on the show multiple times, remind us what content you do.
So I'm basically a Nintendo/variety streamer. I also do some retro content. Soon to be eventually getting into the genre of doing a lot of different kart racers, and I'll be talking a little bit about some of the multiplayer gaming in terms of kart racing games and whatnot. But yeah, kart racers are going to become my specialty in a few months.
All right. Yeah. What about you, OddHour, since you've also been on the show before?
Right, yeah, variety streamer through and through. I play a bunch of different stuff on every console, retro and modern. Really, it's just kind of whatever I feel like. Sometimes I let the Discord decide, but I just kind of play what my heart desires. And I try to include a bunch of multiplayer games too, because I love playing games with people.
Yep. Calkos?
I don't do shit. I mostly hang out on these guys' stream and pretend that my opinions matter more than theirs. But it's always fun to play with these people. I love multiplayer gaming just as much as everybody else does.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun to play these multiplayer games. So many years of so many games across multiple platforms, and a lot of different genres have evolved over the years, and how we actually play these games. But before we even think about talking about like favorites or whatever, let's start from the beginning. What were your first multiplayer games that you can remember playing? Starting with you, Mike.
For me, obviously, back in the 90s and the 2000s, the N64 was kind of the multiplayer console. So, I mean, you know, the classics, Mario Kart 64, Mario Party, Super Smash Brothers, all that good stuff. That's kind of where I remember doing a lot of my main multiplayer gaming. And then when the GameCube came out, a lot on that as well with Mario Kart Double Dash, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Yep.
You know, a lot of those kinds of games.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of great games, great classics on the N64 and GameCube where you could play like all these great multiplayer games with 4 players. Because N64, as far as I'm aware, is probably like the first of the major consoles to have 4 players right off the box, because you
almost, it was one of their main selling points to, you know, get 4 people to come into the same room and play a game together, whether it was just massacring each other in GoldenEye or what have you.
Yeah, because like before you would have to use like multi-taps, but nope, not this time. Right off the box. OddHour, you.
My parents, while I was in my mom's belly, were playing NES, so I came out of the womb playing NES and Super Nintendo. So we're talking Mario 1, we're talking Mario 3 with my dad. That's still his favorite game. It's my favorite game of all time as well. Mm-hmm. He and I still play it from time to time. Like, multiplayer for me was very much 2 people. And then I was born in 96 when the N64 came out, so similar to Mike, we're talking Mario Party with my parents and my sister, Mario Kart 64, GameCube right there.
Yep.
And then PS2, those were only 2-player games, but my sister and I would, like, switch off between playing Crash Bandicoot, so that was our own version of multiplayer when it came to single-player games. But yeah, I was raised on NES and Super Nintendo, and then very quickly shifted over to N64. They all kind of melted together while I was a kid.
Sounds good. Very good. What about you, Calkos?
So I never had a console growing up. I had a PC. It was a work PC that my dad had, so a lot of my time playing games at home was very much single player. But if I would go to a friend's house, a lot of the times they had an N64 or a PlayStation that we would play together. So I played a lot. Mario Party was always a favorite amongst all of us. Same thing with Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye. Even though I think GoldenEye sucks right now, don't at me. So I also remember playing Sonic 2 at a friend's house on their Sega Genesis, as well as the X-Men beat 'em up, which I can't remember the title. I remember it though.
Yep.
So it wasn't until I got a Game Boy Advance, and my brother got a Game Boy Advance, and we got a link cable. We would play one of the Yu-Gi-Oh games a lot together, and so eventually, when I was 12 years old, we got ourselves a GameCube.
No.
And that was our multiplayer. That we played tons of Melee, tons of Mario Party 4 and 5, tons of Custom Robo,
Yep.
And a whole bunch of other multiplayer games on that system. So we loved that thing to death. It was also around that time that I played a lot of online multiplayer games with my PC, because I've been a PC gamer since the start. My main game there was Counter-Strike. I played thousands and thousands of hours of Counter-Strike. And I'll get to that later. But yeah.
Yeah, those are some really good games that you played, and the fact that you actually started off with PC and just kept going for all these years on PC, that's actually really cool. Like, for me, this is how I started. So, when I was a little kid, I started with NES, so naturally it was only limited to 2 players. But I would play multiplayer with my younger brother, or would play with like my older brother or my cousin or anyone else that would come over back in the day. Mostly family. We would play Contra. We would play Super Mario Brothers 3, where like it was basically like a taking turns multiplayer. Like one person finishes a stage and then another person finishes a different stage, like Mario and Luigi and all that. But Mario World did the same thing as well. But then like when I moved on to the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles had like 2-player co-op where like one person was Sonic and the other one was Tails. My brother and I would play both games multiplayer, and they also have like the versus mode where you race to see like who can get to the goal the fastest. We would play that. But for me, because I remember back in 1991 was like when fighting games started to go mainstream thanks to Street Fighter 2. And during the 90s, I would play a lot of fighting games in the arcades. So I played a lot of Street Fighter, I played a lot of Mortal Kombat, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, Samurai Showdown, Tekken, Virtua Fighter, so many fighting games, even Marvel vs. Capcom. I spent so many quarters on Marvel vs. Capcom 2 over the years, as well as playing a lot of Soul Calibur 1 and 2. We would play a lot of arcade games. Like, my mom always took us to the arcades a lot, or at least a store that had arcade machines, and there would be something that 2 people could play, so my brother and I could play together, and it was always fun. But I still remember this one time as a kid that my parents actually played a 4-player beat 'em up with me and my younger brother, and that game was The Simpsons. That was the only time the 4 of us have ever played a 4-player game together. It's never happened again after that. But honestly, that was a good moment. We didn't beat the game together, but we did make it pretty far. I think we made it to like the level where you're in the dream and you have to fight against a giant bowling ball, but we ran out of quarters, and then we just decided that it was time to go home. But yeah, and of course, I too have played N64. I too have played GameCube. I know the Dreamcast had multiplayer as well, like 4 players, as well as the original Xbox 4 right out the box. So I played pretty much anything you could sink your teeth into back in like the 2000s. Like Melee was there. Mario Kart Double Dash was there. Yes, I played those. But I feel like for PC gaming, I did not get into like multiplayer PC gaming until the 2010s. That was when I really got into it. Like, I played some of it, but not like heavily until the 2010s.
Our family arcade favorite was Daytona, actually.
Yes.
We loved Daytona back in the day. So we played again when we went to Fun Spot back when we lived in New England. And at that point, when I went to MagFest in 2016, I learned how to drift properly by downshifting on the turns so you could drift.
Yeah.
You know how on that third turn on the beginner course, you always smash into the wall at top speed?
Yeah.
And it's because nobody knows how to drift. And so when I did that, I completely whipped my family, and they were completely disinterested in playing again after that.
Okay, that has enough Daytona machines for us to all play together at some point, Pete.
Yeah. If I could ever find an arcade that has like 8 Daytona USA machines, we're playing, because it could only go up to 8 players, but it's fun. I've done it before.
Have you guys played the new one?
No, I have not.
No, I haven't gotten.
There is a new one. They released it a few years ago. It's a whole new Daytona thing with updated graphics, mirror modes for every single track. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's super freaking good.
Yeah.
The only problem is some of the cabs, you have to be a little lucky. Some of the cabs have tap up or tap down to downshift instead of like a regular stick shift.
Right.
So you have to be a little lucky and hope that you get the stick shift.
Yeah. Yeah, because I grew up with Daytona. I also grew up with the cruising games. I didn't really have too much nostalgia for Ridge Racer, but Cruising USA and World I played a lot of, as well as Exotica. And there was like another Sega racing game I have played. Not in the arcades, but on Sega Saturn. That was Sega Rally Championship. That was a good one.
Game over.
Yeah. But yeah, we got a lot of really good multiplayer games. Like, racing has always been really good. Shooters, but like fighting games were always like the big one for me. Like, I used to play like a lot of fighting games. Wasn't so great at them, but I at least had fun with them back in the day. But honestly, I never got into MMOs. I only ever played one MOBA in my life, and that's Pokemon Unites.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a little bit of Dota 2, but Dota 2 could be a little bit of a toxic game along with League of Legends and all that.
Man, I had a friend that tried to get me into Dota 2, and after 4 hours of her trying to explain the rules of Dota 2 and how to play, man, I was finished. 4 hours to cover the basics?
Like, that's a lot of time to try to cover the basics.
You can teach someone how to play League of Legends in 15 minutes. Like, the difference between those two games is ridiculous. I remember playing a lot of League of Legends back in the day because that game was easy to learn. You could learn the basics in no time, but the skill ceiling is incredibly high, which is why it has such a healthy competitive scene.
Yeah.
But Dota 2, it's like, there are so many effects on the screen during team battles, it's hard to tell what's going on. I couldn't stand it.
Oh, yeah. I never got a chance to play Dota 2. But there's still a lot of multiplayer games that I would like to at least try out sometime across multiple genres. But I also like puzzle games too, like puzzle competitive multiplayer, which I'll talk more about some of these games really soon.
Puyo versus Tetris, baby.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those games. Yeah. Like, I don't know, but we each had our own starts on how we actually got a chance to play, like, these multiplayer games over the years, but like, the most common one, like, for those who grew up in the 90s and 2000s was N64, because, like, that one, like, everyone got to play, like, with their families or friends, and it was all fun. Alright. So the next topic is, do you prefer cooperative multiplayer or competitive multiplayer? And this one we'll spend a little more time on. So let's start with you on this one, Calkos. Do you prefer co-op or competitive?
So I swing back and forth. When I was younger, I preferred competitive play. I got into fighting games around 2007 when I first watched Evo Moment 37. Yeah, I've got it up. When I watched Evo Moment 37, and from there I started getting really curious, so I downloaded SNES 9X and started playing a lot of the Super Nintendo fighting games, World Warrior, Mortal Kombat 3, so on and so forth. So that's when I got into it, and when Street Fighter 4 came out, that's when I started getting into them competitively. So for fighting games were my drug for several years. And also, like I said, Counter-Strike, a ridiculous amount of Counter-Strike, hopping from custom server to custom server, playing everything from the competitive modes to the really crazy stuff like Surf and Zombies and Gun Game. I loved that stuff. But as I've gotten older, I've tended to... What really changed me from competitive to cooperative was Dark Souls. So that game has a really interesting multiplayer component that everybody's familiar with, where you can play cooperatively with random people, or you can play competitively by invading other people's worlds.
Yeah.
So I hated getting invaded. I always felt like it was the game basically telling me, nuh-uh, somebody said you can't go any further, you're going to die now. But I loved the cooperation system because it was so fleeting. You could join someone else's game, and then they would, you would help them, and then you would just leave. And it was kind of neat to be able to help out other random members of the community. But there are 3 cooperative games that I hold as the pillars of cooperative entertainment, the games that I'll hold near and dear to my heart forever. The first is Valheim.
Yeah.
Something we're already playing right now. I've played Valheim by myself just to try it, and it's kind of boring. There's not a lot going on. You have to put in so much effort just to get anywhere. But playing in multiplayer, all of the chores are divvied up behind everybody else that you're playing with, and it is so much fun cooperatively. It's some of the best, most fun I've had with our player group in ever. The other one is Monster Hunter. I think Monster Hunter as a cooperative experience is wonderful. I have 890 hours in World and counting. I have gotten that game down to a science. I play 9 out of the 14 weapons competently.
Yeah.
I've got friends into it, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait for the next one. But the third game, the best cooperative game I have ever played, is Deep Rock Galactic. And it's because all of the interaction you have with other players in the game is completely positive.
Yeah.
The game tool is incredibly comprehensive, and the salute button makes you go rock and stone in the heart. Let's go rock and stone, rock and stone. So it's like it's a salute to your fellow dwarves to get everybody on the same page and get everybody excited to go through the objectives. And I absolutely love Deep Rock Galactic. I don't think there will be another competitive game that will equal it.
Sounds good. Like, I know, like, I would see some of you guys play Deep Rock Galactic from time to time. I wouldn't mind giving it a shot in the future.
No, I mean, I played a little bit of Deep Rock Galactic. As someone who hasn't put in too many hours, it was a good time when I played. I should probably be playing it more often, too, to be honest.
Hey, I've got friends that are willing to play at any time. Just say the word, and we'll get a stream going.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Mike, you'll go next. Do you prefer cooperative or competitive multiplayer?
See, it's difficult because, I mean, I enjoy both aspects of everything. Like, when it comes to me and Mario Kart, of course I love ripping up the track against everybody else at the bonfire when we get our SRB2 kart sessions going.
Yes.
Whenever we're playing Mario Kart, all that other good stuff. But then you also have games like Sea of Thieves, and me and Calkos could literally talk about how toxic that game got for hours, because legitimately, you'll have 12-year-olds yelling at you to commit Sudoku and other stuff, and when that kind of stuff happens, it kind of makes you not want to like bother with the competitive aspect of Sea of Thieves. But at the same time, you also love the cooperative aspect of enjoying the seas and everything with the stories, and that's what we really loved about Sea of Thieves back when we were playing. We're gonna have to play it again soon after the Xbox conference, by the way. That's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, over the years, I've kind of enjoyed more of the cooperative aspect of just like joining everybody in the, our group of friends, just like getting stuff done together. Like, I think ever since like Calkos got me into games like V Rising and Valheim, like I've enjoyed like just the journey of going through these open worlds and crafting stuff and just taking on all these bosses together and just like evolving our landscape and everything. And I think that's just what I've enjoyed a lot more about the cooperative aspect. There's a good side of both of them.
Do you remember our very first time playing the game on our little tutorial island that the game made for us?
Oh yeah, we were stuck on that. We were like, I was just like, I didn't want to stop. I remember like all the fun we were having, and then Silver showed off E-Rising, and then I literally paid $140 for it. But no, other than that, like I kind of prefer the cooperative side of things more than the competitive aspects. Even though I do enjoy the kart racing games and other competitive games like the battle royale games like Fall Guys, and also this other kart racing game that's going to be coming out that I hope does well, Stampede, a 60-player freaking kart racing battle royale that I've been waiting for ages.
Oh yeah, I saw that, like 60 players. That's insane.
I'm gonna have a good time with that when that beta drops. But
I need to actually sign up for that.
Over the years, between all the bullshit and the other competitive aspects, I've kind of enjoyed the cooperative side more, to be honest. But that's my personal take.
Yep. Well, yeah, because there's a lot of really good multiplayer games that have have all the insanity that happens, especially like Mario Kart, but you just want to chill every now and then just to play a game together. Just
even RPGs, like stuff like Toontown Online. Like I still play Toontown Rewritten in Corporate Clash with CTK. Like I don't know if my friendship with CTK would be as deep if we never like got introduced to each other and found out we both played Toontown. And the fact that it even still exists through fan-made servers and stuff, and other multiplayer online MMORPGs like Vindictus and Maple Story from Nexon, like I still love the cooperative aspects of that. Also, just going through dungeons and just killing beasts and just chilling.
yeah, just going to different worlds in general. Because I like I said before, like my brother loves Maple Story. He spent a lot of time like with the character that he had. He would play it off and on, but when he would play it, he was on it a lot throughout like
I still
the 2000s.
have my level 140. I have some of my level 140 characters that I was able to get from my old account.
Yeah. But yeah, like those were some really good games that you actually got to play. And also like glad to hear like your take on the whole competitive and cooperative multiplayer.
Yeah, I could go on about other people and all, like you know, in Switcher play, we have some people that get like mad thirsty for the 1v1s in Puzzle League and Street Fighter 6. You and me both know one specific person in mind that, you know, if they're listening,
they know who they are. They know exactly who they are.
And it's like, no, I'd rather just chill and have a good time and just, you know, get stuff done with people.
Right. What about you? Well, go ahead.
If I'm gonna play a competitive game now, it's going to be with friends.
Yeah.
Like Silver recently got me a game called Friends vs. Friends, which is a 2v2 card-based shooter.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was watching him and Epic play it, and it actually looked fun.
Interesting take on that.
Yep. All right, OddHour?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, it's interesting because it was a lot of cooperative growing up, right? Like those early Mario games, you would, one person would be Mario, would be Luigi, but you're both working towards the same goal and things like that. So it was really cooperative for a long time. And then it started becoming competitive when, like, I started playing Mario Party with friends. Like, I wasn't playing just by myself anymore. People were coming over. I started making friends. People would come and hang out with me, and we would play Mario Party. So competitive became, like, bigger in that regard. And then, like, even within Mario Party, you would have, like, 2v2s and 3v1s. Like, it was just kind of like if we didn't have a full party, it was like everybody's against the CPU, and then we'll be at each other's throats and things like that. So, like, very early on, it was cooperative, and then once I got my 360, it started being competitive. Right, I got Halo 3. That was like my second game on when I got my 360. So like it became competitive very, very quickly. Early on, I was at like a computer cafe and I was playing a little bit of early Counter-Strike and things like that. But it was like I focus more on like the team aspect. I focus more on the cooperative part of Counter-Strike, like syncing up with a team, and that bled into Call of Duty and Halo, like I just mentioned. Like I very much enjoy cooperatively being competitive, which a lot of games offer. Mm-hmm. I think one of the games that is very emblematic of that is Fall Guys, right? Like Fall Guys dropped and it was every man for themselves, every person for themselves. And then once the team function dropped, where you could run duos and trios and squads and things like that, I feel like the game got a second breath, because it was like, now if one of us wins, we all win. We don't get a full crown, but we get like some part of it, and it's much more cooperative. Again, it's that cooperative competitiveness.
I'm pissed off they got rid of the team games for that, by the way.
Yeah, like the team games sucked in solo games because you're going against these people, you team up with these dum-dums. Randoms inherently are just not like fun to play with.
Yeah.
So you have to team up with them, and then the next round you're at each other's throats again. It's not fun. And I said it very, very early on. I was like, team games shouldn't exist. It should be all or nothing. We should all be at a team. Only team games would be fine. Go in with the same team, win with the same team. I'm good with that, and that's exactly what squads did for Fall Guys specifically.
Yeah.
But like with beat 'em ups and side scrollers, like my friends and I got really into X-Men Arcade when it dropped on Xbox 360. So like that was really, really fun, being able to play a game purely cooperatively, uncompetitively. Like we're just going against NPCs and working together. That hasn't really happened for me, at least in my experience with gaming, since like early NES. So dropping into that was really, really cool, starting to play more beat 'em ups with my friends once they had online functionality. And then I started thinking about games like GTA 4 Online and Red Dead Redemption 1 Online, like where there wasn't necessarily a competitive aspect to it in the open world, but you could very easily do missions with each other, or you could just like run to the airport, steal a helicopter. Like, I remember one of my greatest stories about Red Dead Online is a friend who's no longer with us. There's an achievement to start in Blackwater and ride all the way in one single horse ride to the town in Mexico on the other side of the map. And we had one of the greatest conversations of my life, just talking about everything and anything. So like, that wasn't really cooperative or competitive, but if we wanted to, very quickly we could have started shooting each other. You know, like having that like tension, I guess, in an open world where that like is offered in GTA Online. Forget about like the actual competitive aspect and things like that. Just like being able to do things together, not necessarily cooperative, not necessarily competitive either, but just doing activities with one another that don't really have like a means or an end goal, I think is also really important too when it comes to multiplayer. So like, I think I prefer cooperative multiplayer in the grand scheme of things, just because it helps build bonds, and you go through something together, even if it's something silly like a Mario game, right? Like when my family and I would all play New Super Mario Bros. Wii because we had 4 controllers and we could each be somebody. Like, that was awesome. Like, that helped me feel a lot closer to my family and my friends with teaming up on Call of Duty again, cooperative, competitive. I think I prefer cooperative more because it makes me feel more in tune with the people that I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very fair. Like, just being able to play a lot of cooperative multiplayer, like with your family and friends. Like, I have my own experiences with that too. Like, because for me, like when it comes to cooperative and competitive, growing up, I think I played a lot more competitive than I have played cooperative. For cooperative, like, it was obviously the beat 'em ups. Like, I too had played X-Men. I played Simpsons. I played the Ninja Turtles games, Final Fight, Streets of Rage, and all that stuff. So many of those games, teaming up with your friends to beat people up. But I played a lot more competitive. Like I said, a lot of fighting games. Like, that was the main thing I played. Spent so many hours playing like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Played a lot of Capcom vs. SNK 2 EO on the GameCube. Played Soul Calibur 2. Because during those times, like back when I was in high school, a lot of people would just gather around the moment people would play fighting games. Like Super Smash Bros. Melee was huge in my school, despite the fact that a lot of people in my school did not like GameCube because they think that we're too cool for GameCube. Like GameCubes for kids and all that. And yet those same people would still play Smash Melee because it's a fighting game. It's competitive. It may not be a fighting game in a traditional sense, but still the same crowd. They want to come in. They want to play, especially at school. Anything that was made by Capcom, any like of the 3D fighters, Mortal Kombat, people would crowd around to play it. Even back then, Dragon Ball Z fighting games were coming out like in North America. We were getting Budokai 2, and all that. And eventually we get the Tenkaichi games and stuff. People were playing that in high school and even in college. So I would see that, but Mario Kart was another one. We play Mario Kart competitively. Like I honestly feel like I got more into it with DS because, like, since I was in college, I was taking my DS with me and just played the game. And I take my DS and someone heard me play it, and then they just wanted to play. And then other people would just come in. They wanted to just get in on the multiplayer for Mario Kart, or even Tetris, because I love playing competitive Tetris. I'm not the best at it, but I love it. I play a lot of Tetris DS back in college, because I started off with the NES one, but Tetris DS was what got me back into Tetris, and that's where I started to learn a lot of the tricks of the trade, learning how to get better at how I play Tetris. The only thing that I still need to get better at is how to do all those crazy T-spin combos. That I still have to work on. But other than that, I feel like I'm pretty good at it. Playing online, or back then, you could play with a total of 10 people in Tetris DS through the DS, and that was a lot of fun. And I remember just even beating some people who were like way better than me at Tetris, and I was like shocked that I was actually able to beat them a few times. But like I would see how good they were, and like yeah, and that carried over to like other games. Like there's Tetris Axis for the 3DS, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Tetris 99. Of course, you have stuff like Tetris Tetris Effect Connected, which is basically like a Tetris game you can just chill and play.
Tetris Effect, I gotta say, just for that needs to be played in VR if you get a chance. That game is wonderful in VR.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to cry in VR, but I did.
Yeah, I kind of did too. Is how beautiful the visuals got.
Yeah, I still gotta actually play that in VR.
Yeah,
but
it was that and Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a competitive story I want to bring up. So there's a series of puzzle games known as the Panel the Pawn series, or Puzzle League in North America. And I'm gonna go back to 2019. There was a convention, Long Island Retro. They had a tournament for Tetris Attack, which is the first Puzzle League game that we got. And a buddy of ours, Rob Tager, he participated in the tournament, and I think that he had one match that lasted for nearly 2 hours. And
yeah, no, that was a mess and a half. Just them back and forth, him and his opponent, just like sending garbage at each other in Tetris Attack.
Like
I remember that.
Like I would just leave periodically just to check around the vendors and everything, and I would come back and I'm like, wait a minute, is this still the same match? And then like everyone said yes, and I was just shocked, and I just stood there just watching everything. It was just back and forth. The garbage would go like to the right, the garbage would go to the left.
The almost broke from how much it was getting hammered with the RAM couldn't handle it.
Exactly, it was too much. I'm like, when is somebody going to win? Like it was insane. And then when it was over, I actually thought that that Rob won because the way that he acted. I thought that he won, but he didn't. He
came in second.
It was a very, very close game. Just back and forth of all these puzzles, like all the garbage just going from one side to the other, and vice versa. And these two players were just absolutely like tearing the house down with this game. They destroyed each other. And yet, they haven't brought it back since, and I don't think they're going to bring that particular game back anytime soon, considering how much of a...
So that, I think they learned not to bring that game back, otherwise they were going to be there for like another 2 hours.
It was like a death match. Like, it wasn't just...
It literally felt like a death match. That was like for hours.
Like, people thought that it was just going to be like a little competitive, but nope. No, it was extremely competitive. Like it was that much of a bloodbath. Like
said, you'll get to play Magical Tetris Challenge.
If only someone recorded the entirety of that tournament. If only someone did, because me talking about it just doesn't do it justice. That much I'm gonna say.
Not.
But it's one of those you had to be there moments. You had to be there just to see how it was. Wow. But like there are some other competitive puzzle games like Puzzle Fighter, like Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which Capcom made with like Street Fighter, Darkstalkers characters on there. Fun game. And the other thing is going back to this whole competitive versus cooperative. I think around like the 2010s, I was playing some more online co-op games. Not a whole lot of them, but I was playing a lot more than I ever did. But growing up, I used to play Contra. I played Contra with my brother, but we weren't really good at it. My brother and I did play Contra 3 on the Super Nintendo through the Wii's Virtual Console, and we almost finished the game on hard mode, but it's hard. But the best ones for me, like I play a lot of Castle Crashers back in the day on Xbox 360. And I still remember actually doing a stream with you, Mike, Eggs and Epic Man playing Castle Crashers. We just finished that at one sitting because that was so good. It was so much fun.
Crashers.
Yeah. Scott Pilgrim versus the World was another one. Streets of Rage 4, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge. Those games were fun to play with multiple people, and I would like to see some more beat 'em ups. Like I feel like we've been on a beat 'em up renaissance for a few years now, and I just like to see more. And I'm hoping Toxic Crusaders ends up being a good game, but I'll have to try the demo on Steam for that one. But competitive in general, I'm at the point where in my life right now, I'm not as competitive with a lot of games as I used to be. I kind of fell off with wanting to actually play Smash competitively, like not go to major tournaments, but at least hold my own against other people. But I still play Smash every now and then, just on the more crazy casual side, rather than the serious competitiveness where like the whole no items, Fox only, Final Destination bullshit. I don't do that anymore. But it's one of those things where it's like I had a part of my life that I did it, had my fill, don't really need to do it anymore. But that's just me personally. But for anyone that still wants to do it, you have fun. But same thing with fighting games. And I did not get Street Fighter 6 yet, but I do plan to get Street Fighter 6. But I mainly want to play with friends and have a good time. And Calcos, I know that you're excited to eventually play Street Fighter 6 with me when I eventually get it.
I'm gonna beat your ass and love every step of it.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, but honestly, like no matter what games you play, whether you prefer co-op or competitive, it's valid either way, just as long as you're having fun. That's really what it boils down to.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now the next thing is, what are your favorite multiplayer games? And we'll start with you, OddHour.
Oh man, favorite multiplayer. Should I limit it to like 5 or 10, or should I just kind of spout and see what happens?
Just spout and see what happens. Go ahead.
Well, okay. My dog's screaming in the background. I shouldn't go first. Let me get him calm. I'll pass it to somebody else and then pass it back to you.
All right, Calcos.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about Counter-Strike because I have a lot of history with Counter-Strike, and I played pretty much everything. I played in competitive. I didn't really exactly know what I was doing, but when I first played the game was not too long after CS Source launched. I never played 1.6. I only played Source. I didn't really know better at the time, to any CS purists that may be watching. But it was after I got Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, and I preferred Source just because the graphics were prettier. But a lot of my time was started playing like 32v32 on maps that were only designed to hold 10 people, which was hilarious. But eventually the modded servers started breaking out, so I started playing a lot of modded stuff with Surf, Gun Game, and all that stuff. But thinking back on that, I realized that when it comes to competitive games and multiplayer games in general, there's something we've lost. The great thing about Counter-Strike and TF2 back in the day, bring Team Fortress into it, was that you could pick whatever server that you wanted. Like, there were competitive servers, there were goofy servers, there were casual servers. So no matter what kind of gamer you were, you could just choose the server that fit your need, and then you could just, play on that server, and you could favorite it, and you could come back to that server the next day. And if somebody, does something, is mean or says slurs or whatever, you can blacklist that server and go to a different one. Now, ever since Halo 2, everything is matchmake-based. Everything is based around matchmaking. And it means that every type of gamer, the serious gamer, the casual gamer, the goofy gamer, they're all bled into this one ecosystem where they're all forced to play together, and it means everyone is miserable, especially in team games like Overwatch, where communicating with your team is really important. So this is where the toxicity comes in. Because people are not allowed or able to go into the server that they want, they get matched up with dicks and assholes and people who use slurs online, and it's like, man, I want to go back. Let's go back to custom servers.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the way that things used to be. And so now, when it comes to multiplayer, I basically restrict it to my friends, because I know my friends are going to be toxic. We'll talk trash, but, whatever. There's friendly banter between friends. I think yeah, we've lost something along the way, and I think it's really annoying.
We really did, yeah. And unfortunately, like, sucks. It sucks we lost a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. I think my favorite multiplayer game, another favorite of mine, what haven't I talked about yet? So, I guess the one fighting game that I played the most was Street Fighter 4. I don't think that game has stood the test of time. I think that it really should have stopped at version 2012. Instead, they made Ultra Street Fighter 4, which completely ruined the game. Elena's Supremacy? Yeah. Yeah, it was really nasty. Everybody had a pocket Elena. You would run into nothing but Elenas online. It sucked. And Street Fighter 5, okay. If we're talking multiplayer games, boy oh boy was Street Fighter 5 a big lesson in how you make a fighting game. Because that game, if you guys remember, that game launched with nothing. You had no arcade mode, versus online, and that was it. That was all you got. And I think, okay, so let's take, now that we're on the discussion of fighting games, let's take, because Street Fighter 6 just came out, let's take every single fighting game that is ever released and put them all into one arena, Battle Royale style, and put them all against each other and analyze them and critique them and everything like that until we find the one fighting game that is unilaterally the best.
Yeah.
I think, okay, I don't think this is a controversial opinion, but I think the game that would survive and rise above the rest is Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Yes.
That game, I think, it's not my personal favorite, but I think it's the greatest fighting game of all time. Some people may advocate for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and there is an argument, but I think if I were to go to any fighting game meetup and say that, and lay my theory out, I don't think I would get a lot of people that would dissent. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike really is a magical fighting game that is still fun to play all these years later. But it has a problem. Street Fighter 3, all of the home ports, the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, even Online Edition, there's next to no content. Like, the version that everybody loves, the PS2 version, has versus, arcade, and a lackluster training mode, and that's it. So you lose 99% of your potential audience because the other 99% needs content. And so where do you go for that? You go to the casual's favorite fighting game. Let's do the arena thing again. What is the casual's favorite fighting game? The person that doesn't really play fighting games, but if they're going to play a fighting game, they're going to play this one. What game is that? Soul Calibur 3. That game had content out the ass. Single-player modes, multiplayer modes, a full character editor, unlockables, 50 fucking characters. That game had everything. But the fighting system sucks. It's slow, it's glitchy, it's annoying. The buttons don't fucking work sometimes. The buffer is non-existent. It sucks. But casual players didn't really care. So now there's an interesting schism in fighting games. You either have a fighting game with a great combat system or a fighting game that's feature-rich. You can't have both, right?
Yeah.
Street Fighter 6 has both, which is why I revere it so much. There's tons of single-player content in the World Tour mode and the character editor, and the multiplayer system is fantastic with great netcode. Anyway, that's my spiel. Let's move on to someone else.
All right, OddHour.
I'm back. So yeah, favorite multiplayer games. Mario 3 is my favorite game of all time, so that's got to be included. Single player, multiplayer, playing with a friend online on NES Online now is still tops for me. It's really hard to beat. Gosh, the more I think about it, the more I'm struggling to come up with like a really top tier answer here. I think then we're gonna jump into like Mario Party 3. I think Mario Party 3 is just a fantastic time. It's my favorite game of the N64 like era, next to like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. Like Mario Party 3 is just such a good, purely fun Mario Party experience. Such a good multiplayer experience. Like I really, really love that game. Like Michael might remember this when I posted on Twitter. Like I didn't even know that it had a board. There was a board that I never played. It was a Waluigi board. Had no idea because I never finished it.
Good old Waluigi's Island, back when you had to get all the stars in the story mode in order to play it.
And I didn't know that. I just played the multiplayer that much. I never played single player. Even when I was playing multiplayer, when I was playing by myself, I played as though I was in party mode. I didn't play the single player mode with the duels and all that stuff. That didn't interest me. Once I found out about it, I went back and I did it on my N64 cartridge. Like that game is fantastic.
Remember the original Mario Party when we did the Superstar show? I had no idea about Eternal Star. and how messed up that board was until we did it all together. That was my first time getting 100 stars and figuring out that board too.
Yep.
I never heard of Internal Star. There's probably a board in Mario Party 2 I don't know about at this point. Like, there's just, like, Mario Party N64 is fantastic, but my favorite's 3 personally. I think Mario Kart Double Dash might be my favorite Mario Kart, even though it hasn't really stood the test of time compared to like how tight and responsive Deluxe is in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, Mario Kart Wii is fun too, but I mean, if you hit the railing in Mario Kart Wii, you were dead. You might as well just put the controller down. Like,
yeah,
as fun as that game was, and like the online of it was fun too. Like, Double Dash was a fantastic couch co-op game for a number of reasons. And I went to my only MagFest, my only con I've ever been to was MagFest 2020, right before the pandemic hit. They had a setup of 6 consoles, or maybe it was 12 GameCubes that were running like a LAN version of Mario Kart Double Dash, which was some of the most fun I've ever had. So that game.
Oh no, we do that every year at Long Island Retro too.
Yeah.
They have the whole LAN session set up also. It's pretty sick.
I gotta go to Long Island Retro now. I didn't know that, because that was a fantastic.
Also, you can come meet us there in 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm down.
All right.
We'll talk about it after the stream.
Yeah. Moving quickly because I feel like I'm taking too much time.
No. You keep going. Keep going.
I took like 20 minutes. Go ahead.
Keep going.
That's fair. That's fair. Castle Crashers. You mentioned it, and I remembered it. Like, the Xbox 360 era was fantastic because of games like Halo 3, the multiplayer. Like, how many friends I made for like a year or two that I would just hop on Halo 3 and invite whoever was on. It got to a point where we filled like an entire custom games lobby with randoms that we met online because they were all super chill.
Yeah.
Like, similar to custom servers like you were talking about, Calcos, like custom games in Halo 3 was a fantastic experience.
Forge mode.
The things you could do in Forge mode, the game modes you could create and things like that. Like, Halo 3 was a fantastic 360 game, and like I was so sad when the servers went down, but like, I get it. It's an old game at this point. It doesn't really feel the same in Master Chief Collection. But like, the arcade for 360, like, I don't know if anybody here has played N Plus on Xbox 360.
I have.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm friends with the devs. They're fantastic people. This is go play N++ because it's
I will do that eventually when I get a chance.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic game. They finally got it the way that they wanted it originally to be back when they made it N on Newgrounds, like those old Flash games. Like, N+ was fantastic.
That's really talking old school now.
That's where they started, right? I was so interested to learn about it because like it was so like N+ was so pivotal for so many things. Like, that was just the game we played when we didn't really have anything else to play. So, like, N+ was there. Castle Crashers at the same time frame I got put onto Castle Crashers. Like, I don't know if anybody here did that glitch where you get, like, everybody up to level 255 and you unlock every weapon and every character and things like that. Like,
I tried my best to do that as best as I could until they got rid of the glitch.
I've heard of it, but never did it.
I did it. And it was fantastic, just mowing down every single person after
I had a lot of fun. I did that with the Necromancer when he came out.
Ah, the Necromancer was such a cool...
That's my favorite character. He looks like Meta Knight and he's badass.
Such a cool night.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, like, Black Ops 1 for me was still my favorite Call of Duty. Like, the online was great. Zombies was great. I still love playing Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3 Zombies. Like, the Call of Duty zombie experience peaked there for me. So that was a fantastic multiplayer aspect of Call of Duty. Never really played the single player, but I feel like that goes without saying. What else was really good? Those are kind of like my top favorites right off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Mario Party, original Mario, Call of Duty Zombies, Red Dead Online and GTA 4 Online were fantastic too, but like, eventually they got stale, so they're just kind of up there for nostalgia more than anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my top list off the top of my head. More recent games are games like Smash Ultimate. Like, Smash is fantastic, but that goes without saying. Like, Banjo-Kazooie being in it, like how many fighters there are and things like that. Like, Smash Ultimate, I play it every Friday because I love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near as good at it, but I got a coin for the Mario event that they had, so I'm kind of good at the game when it comes to Mario characters.
Yeah.
So boom. God, what else?
Fortnite,
yeah. Fortnite kind of snuck up on me. We played it as a joke one day on stream, and I was like, that was fun. That was a lot more fun than I expected it to be. And now we play it a fair amount. So Fortnite's definitely snuck up on me as like a really solid multiplayer game, but it also aggravates me more than a lot of other games too.
Yeah.
Overwatch is in the same
I
category.
can imagine.
Yeah, Overwatch is in the same vein. Overwatch can get very messy very quickly. I like it a lot, but it's not like one of my favorites. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that pretty much rounds it up. A lot of it are like older games, but like more recent games like Fortnite, Smash Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is really fun. I really like the team aspect. Custom items getting put on there too was really solid. Like I did that for the first time not super long ago, so it's still new to me. Really, really solid multiplayer games.
Indeed, they are.
My short list of favorites.
Those are some really good games that you actually listed. So, Mike, your turn.
Not going to take nearly as long, because I mean, for me, you already know how it is. Like, a lot of the games on the N64 still hold a good place in my heart in terms of my favorite, like, multiplayer games. Like, the original 3 Mario Parties, as OddHour said, my personal favorite also being, like, a mix between 2 and 3. Even though some of the music from 1 and some of the minigames, I feel like they held up better than 2 and 3 in certain aspects. Of course, I can't go on without saying how competitive Mario Kart 64 is and how much I used to love it being at Long Island Retro, even though it's not going to be there this year. But if it wasn't for Mario Kart 64, I wouldn't even be here as a gamer. So, honestly, Mario Kart 64 still holds a place in my heart, even though it hasn't stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite multiplayer games to play. Now with all the other ROM hacks that, like Amped Up and Hootin' Time.
Hootin' Time, yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also, I can't even go on without mentioning the wonderful creative community behind SRB2 Card with our custom server that I always like to run.
Yep.
There's literally some of the people in SRB2 Card have made some sick characters and levels, and of course the people that made my character also are a wonderful artist, as well as, you know, all the other custom things that people have made.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Fall Guys, of course, because Fall Guys is been one of my favorites since it came out. And honestly, I have to also put Toontown and all the other MMORPGs like MapleStory and Vindictus up there, because I've had a lot of good memories with those as well. But in terms of more recent ones, I'd have to say one of my most favorite multiplayer games from the like more current times. Honestly, Calcos, if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed Valheim and V-Rising as much, because those are going to hold a special place in my heart, as well as Grounded. Like, all those like got me into the survival craft genre, and honestly, I'm like hyped as hell to keep going with that adventure. That's why we have a season 2 playthrough of that going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of good memories in that, but that's pretty much it on my list.
We have a whole ass Viking village now. Everybody has their own house. So cool.
And I also ripped off all the iron you smuggled in and made like a shit ton of blue torches on my house.
Yeah. So what happened was I was messing around with console commands, and I accidentally shut your mouth. Accidentally spawned in a whole bunch of iron before. So the progression in Valheim is blocked off by bosses. So you have to beat a boss before you can get the next thing. So before we fought the Elder, which allows you to get iron, I spawned in some iron and tried to hide it in a junk chest, and Mike found it. And he's been dogging me about it ever since.
There's one game I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Oh, yeah, the pandemic game,
I grew up playing a lot of Animal Crossing, mostly console, no handheld, so home console. We're talking GameCube, we're talking Wii. City Folk is still my favorite, but New Horizons being like a pretty massive in terms of like Animal Crossing online game where you can have like 7 friends over or whatever the max number is, like fantastic, really fantastic. Like beyond just the pandemic game and all that stuff, like it really was a very fun time for a long time. It fell off kind of quickly because they didn't really upkeep it super well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I liked what they were doing with New Horizons until they just stopped the updates.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, that helped a lot of us still keep in contact during the pandemic. We can't forget how much that kind of kept our sanities going.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, what it boils down to, but it still resonated with me so much that it's probably on this list as like one of my favorite multiplayer games.
Yeah. Like, all right, so now I'll talk about my stuff. My favorite multiplayer games. Well, with fighting games, I love Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Holds a huge special place in my heart. Same thing with Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. At first, I was kind of disappointed with the game, but then, like, over time, I actually grew to love the game a lot more, and especially after how of a disappointment Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was, like, I have a newfound appreciation for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 because that game in general, I could just play like just any character and have a good time. Like, I feel like it's a lot more balanced than Marvel 2 was, because Marvel 2, you only had there were 5 characters that absolutely like dominated the game. Like, you had Magneto, you had Storm, you had Cable, you had Sentinel, and Psylocke was another one. But people use secondary characters like Cyclops, Strider, Hiryu, Doctor Doom in Marvel 2 and all that, and managed to do very well. But when you have a team of Magneto, Storm, and Sentinel, and they're still really good in Marvel 3, but like, you have other characters in the mix that were good. Like, Wolverine was really good. Zero was another one. Strider. Like, they have a really good cast of characters that were really good. But I remember they actually had to nerf, in vanilla Marvel 3, they actually had to nerf Sentinel's health a little bit, because apparently it was too high. So they had to nerf him a bit. And they nerfed a couple of characters in Ultimate because of the fact that some characters were just, like, too much. So they had to fix them, while also adding more characters to the mix. But I've played a lot of Smash Ultimate. Like, for me, if I had to think of, like, the best Smash games, like, obviously in a more competitive standpoint, I would say Melee. But in terms of the total package, Ultimate. Both of them are like the cream of the crops. The only other, like I know people will probably tell me, what about Brawl? I personally do not hold Brawl to the same degree because random tripping killed the entire game for me. But
too,
yeah,
even though Meta Knight was badass.
Yeah, Meta Knight was too OP. It's like in Melee, like, Fox was like one of the top characters in the game. Brawl, like, number 1 was Meta Knight. I think Solid Snake was 2 and Ice Climber was 3. Because Ice Climber was really high up because of the fact that there was like this grab glitch that you could actually make it into an infinite, and it was too OP. Like, they did not bring Ice Climbers back in Smash 4, but Smash 4, they would have different characters. Like, Diddy Kong was like a high tier character for a while. Then they would introduce more characters, but then they added. But the infamous one for Smash 4 was Bayonetta. Bayonetta was like the best character in the game the moment they brought her in. You put her in the right hands, and she was unstoppable. Like, it got to the point where Evo in 2018, which was the last one to have Smash 4 because Ultimate was coming out later that year, it was Bayonetta versus Bayonetta, and people booed that match. People absolutely trashed that match. Like, people hated it so much. And they did nerf Bayonetta in Ultimate, but now the current problem with Ultimate is Steve. Steve is apparently like the current problem, like the Minecraft. But yeah, and other than that, as far as other favorite multiplayer games go, well, the Mario parties, my favorite one is 4. 4 is my absolute favorite Mario Party game of all time. But I do like 2 a lot. I do like Superstars. I do like 3. But no matter which Mario Party game, I just enjoy playing with friends and all the shenanigans and chaos that happens. You want a good example of chaos? Mike, I hope you don't mind the story I'm about to tell you.
I'm okay with it, because I have a feeling I know which story it might be.
So, we were playing Mario Party 2 through Parsec a couple of years ago. It was me, Mike, Silver, and CTK. We were playing it, and there was a time where you were ahead with like 7 or 8 stars, and CTK had none, and then all of a sudden, at some point, me being Donkey Kong, I landed on Chance Time, and I flipped it so that I move your stars over to CTK and change the entire tide of the entire game. And you were just done. You were done.
I was broken, but you know what? Karma came back to bite y'all because there was that game of Mario Party Superstars where I got like 15 stars in one game.
Oh, wait. Was it the one where...
Yeah, it was the one where Shark played third imposter and he gave me a free star by using the Chomp Claw, and then I also went to King Boo on the same turn. And I also stole like a star from each of you guys, and I had like 13 stars by the end of the game.
See, that's the thing about Mario Party. It's like, people joke around about how it ends friendships. Well, you would think that, but in reality,
no, the fact that crowd control has Mario Party 3, I want to still do that at one point. We'll ruin each other's lives. Never mind friendships.
it's like you'll be like, I hate you. You suck. You are the worst person in the world. I never want to see you again. You want to do another round? That's pretty much what it was. But I know, like, obviously Mario Party is, like, huge, but eventually I need to play Dokapon Kingdom. That game right there.
I want to play that, too, because that's, like, a literal, like, that's a game you have to, like, marathon and do that as, like, a whole entire thing like we did with King's Dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that game, because I know, like the Runaway guys did it, Wooly Versus did it, like, that game, people call it Salt Party because all the shit that happens, there's going to be a lot of salt. Way more than either any Mario Party game or maybe even more than every Mario Party game combined. That's how ridiculous it is. I need to do it because I want to see exactly just what's going to happen if me and my friends decide to play some Dokapon Kingdom together. Like, I don't know. I don't think anything of it. Or so I think. But eventually I'll get to that.
So we get that off the ground.
Yeah. Other favorites, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Tetris 99, Tetris DS. Pretty much like a lot of Tetris games in general. Played a lot of Fall Guys. I don't think I would necessarily say Fall Guys is a favorite, but I had a good time with it, and I think it's fun. Knockout City I liked a little bit more. Rest in peace to that game. Let's see what else was there. I obviously beat 'em ups like The Simpsons, like the Turtles games, Final Fight, X-Men, Streets of Rage 2 and 4, Shredder's Revenge.
I mentioned this before, but yeah, Shredder's Revenge and Scott Pilgrim are still like two of my favorite masterpieces in terms of beat 'em ups.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim's another good one. Especially considering the fact that we got that back 2 years ago, and then earlier this year it finally came out on Steam because it was on Ubisoft's Uplay. But I remember when it came out, like the day it came out on Steam, it was $5, which I'm glad because Scott Pilgrim, like, it's a normal price now, but back when it came out, Scott Pilgrim was just ridiculously, like, just wow. How did they manage to actually bring that back? Like, they got the license back and they wanted to make sure that more people got a chance to get the game, and they did.
With the physical releases too with that.
Yeah. But then there's also like the only other multiplayer games that I could think of that I really enjoyed playing, like I play Splatoon. I play a lot of Splatoon. But aside from that, shooters, I've played some Gears of War, I played some Halo. Specifically, the ones I've enjoyed from Halo was Halo 3 and Halo Reach. Halo Reach, to me, I felt was the last great Halo game, as that was the last Halo game that Bungie did before they left and 343 took over. And I used to play that a lot with my college friends, and we had a great time. But another shooter that I played, this was more team-based, and for anyone that was like around like the late 2000s, early 2010s, Team Fortress 2. Played a lot of that game. Was a lot of fun. Though at first, I originally played it on Xbox 360 through the Orange Box, but they were not adding any updates. So when I played it on PC, they kept updating the game a lot. And they eventually added hats. They eventually added a lot more content. I played a lot of Team Fortress 2. I had fun with it. It's great. And I would actually like to do a Team Fortress 2 night for Digital Bonfire in the near future if you guys are up for it.
Yeah, too, because I would love to bring out my engineer.
Yep, I have some friends that would probably play Team Fortress 2 if we were able to like rent a server or something.
If we could do it, if the opportunity arises, we'll make it happen.
Can I do it through that thing I paid for like $50 for a year for Radman?
I don't remember.
That thing we used for Super Mario 64 speed runs.
Oh, Hamachi.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could do that.
We'll figure that out. That's something we can talk about.
Something we can figure out, but yes.
I mean, otherwise, like, we could always... Shell, you didn't join us for Quake Champions last time. Neither did you, Mike.
I know, because I was busy. I could definitely do a session of that.
Yeah.
That was tons of fun. Like, especially I discovered one thing, Mike, that we didn't explore, is there's a whole bunch of custom game types, like Instagib, which gives everybody rail cannons and one hit, one kill, which is
okay, that sounds great.
It's super fun. There's hot rockets. All rockets do quad damage, and you can't self-hurt yourself, so you can just rocket jump all over the place. It's super cool.
Yeah.
One thing that I would like to mention, though, is Tabletop Simulator. We haven't mentioned Tabletop Simulator.
Tabletop Simulator is another good time. You could play like so many different types of tabletop games with your friends. I know people who use that for like weekly campaigns on certain games. I'm not sure if you could play D&D in that. Could you?
I'm sure if he could play D&D, at least he'd win at it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but continue.
Roll20 is better for that than Tabletop Simulator. So most people use Roll20.
Yeah.
Now, but Tabletop Simulator had a lot of great games. We used it for our Hot Chocolate Summits when we were doing the King's Dilemma.
Summer Boredom.
Yep, Infection Outpost 31, all those other great games. Eventually, I want to do the video board game Nightmare on that.
Oh yeah, that one.
Then again, that's also something I wouldn't mind figuring out IRL if we could ever figure that out.
Yeah, but some of the board games we were playing on Tabletop Simulator, like we played the One Night Ultimate Werewolf, we played Coup, we played the Infection Outpost 31. That one's a good one. Mysterium.
Mysterium is I think our favorite. We love playing Mysterium, especially since I added the music and sound effects.
Now, Mysterium was great.
Yeah, Mysterium was a lot of fun.
I think the best board game I ever played with you guys, Mike's mentioned it a couple times, but the King's Dilemma.
The King's Dilemma.
That game was some of the most fun, most compelling experiences I've ever had with you guys. So OddHour, you may not know what this is, so I'll explain. So the King's Dilemma is a legacy-style game, which means it's a campaign game that you can only play once. Technically, you could play it over and over again, but there's really no point because you'll know everything going into it when you play it for a second time. It's not as exciting. But the goal of the game is you're basically... all you and 4 of your friends, so 5 people, play as council members that run a kingdom. And there's a king, but the king is more of a puppet king. You guys are actually the ones controlling everything. And so you turn over these dilemma cards, which ask you a question like, the diplomats are coming over, and you gotta, discuss how big is the feast going. Are you going to order this for the feast? Yes or no. And sometimes the dilemmas are like, are you going to persecute this people? Yes or no. Or are you going to go to war? Yes or no. Like, sometimes dilemmas are really small, sometimes they're world-reaching. And the idea is that you play poker with the influence tokens that you have to try and get the kingdom to be built in your own image as opposed to what everybody is. And so you convince other players that might be in your best interest to work together. Or sometimes you're fighting like cats and dogs over what it is. And so we've had some incredible, discussions about things. Like, I played a house that was very conservative. Like, my secret agenda was to subdue the outcasts, which ended up being enslaving people. So my house was evil. And so I found it very difficult at times to argue my case with my friends because I had to be a total dipshit. Just an absolute tyrannical asshole to my friends.
Yeah.
To try and get... I had to be very manipulative to try and get them to go my way. And it worked. I ended up winning the whole thing at the end. There's this big decision, and I ended up winning, so it clearly worked. It was great. It was
well done.
Best board game I've ever played.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just absolutely, happy to play any type of multiplayer game, and I have, so many different favorites of mine. But overall, just so many different games over the years. Will always play any type of game with you whenever like anyone asks. It's just a matter of timing, but also some stuff works better locally. Like I know there's some local only multiplayer games, which like for example, I know like the upcoming Sonic game that's coming out, Sonic Superstars, which the best ways to do it online at this point is if you have the Steam version and either do Parsec or Steam Remote Play. Those are the two viable ways you can do it, because there is an online mode, but it's a PvP and not the main co-op mode, which disappointing, but at the same time, I'm still excited for it.
But they actually said that Sonic Superstars is going to have a PvP mode online.
They said something about like a versus, but I'm not sure. No one knows how it looks like though.
Interesting.
I guess I can't talk about it yet.
Gotcha.
But yeah, but other than that, like, now we'll go on to the next thing before we go into the community topics. How have multiplayer games influenced your taste in gaming? We'll start with you, Mike.
Well, honestly, in terms of multiplayer games, over the years, I've gone more from like a competitive side of gaming to more of a cooperative side. Like, I've enjoyed doing the competitive stuff still, like kart racing games and whatnot, but over the years, I feel like I've gotten more of an enjoyment and more pleasure of, like, just, cooperating with everybody to build up, like, cities in Valheim and other stuff, and just working together to go towards a major goal together and just feeling good with everybody when we all get something accomplished together.
Yeah.
But, I always enjoyed doing the multiplayer games with you guys, and, it's been, like, some of my favorite memories with streaming in general and just getting to hang out with all of you and just getting to play some awesome games together, pretty much.
Yeah. OddHour?
For me, and like how multiplayer games influence my taste in gaming, it's like not as much as one would expect. Because I don't really go out of my way to find good multiplayer games to play with people as much. They just kind of get introduced to me. I'm very thankful in that regard that people will come to me like, there's a game I'd like you to try and I'd like you to play with me. All right, cool, I'm down. Like, people will very, very commonly do that with me, and I'm always happy to oblige because I'm always down to try something new. But I think with like, I'm trying like, I completely lost my train of thought.
That's fine.
I completely lost my train of thought. I like single player games just as much as I like multiplayer games. So like games that work for both single player and multiplayer, I'm all for. I think the biggest heartbreak for me in terms of a game like that was Borderlands 3. I picked up Borderlands 3 with a bunch of my friends that I played Borderlands 2 with. I was very happy to re-engage. Like, we're friends and we're always going to be friends. But that's that friend group that you don't really talk to every day. Like, there's not daily conversations. But when something comes up, you'll reconnect. Like, they came over for my birthday this past month. Like, good, solid friends, lifelong friends, but we don't, like, just necessarily communicate every single day.
Right.
That friend group, I got Borderlands 2 because I was going to play with them. But this was when, like, I was in college, so I had work, I had schoolwork, I had social life and things like that. So, like, we got on Borderlands 3 the day it dropped. I played with them. They played without me while I had to wait back. So I ended up playing Borderlands 3 once. I played it that night. And I got to whatever point I got to. I think I jumped, like, one planet. And I genuinely haven't touched it since. I've touched Borderlands 2 more recently than Borderlands 3.
Right.
So, like, it doesn't... Multiplayer games don't really influence my decisions in gaming, but as far as tastes, it's similar to cooperative and competitive, right? Like, I prefer games that I will be able to play with people. Again, N++ is a really good example of that. There's this one game that I played with my sister that I really, really liked called Cell Damage. Not a lot of people know about it. I really, really like Cell Damage.
I have yet to play it, but I have that game downloaded. It looks like a really fun, like, card destruction game.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of cel-shaded cartoon. Like, it's a really, really fun game.
Mm-hmm.
They brought it to Switch not super long ago. There's an HD version that's like a little bit updated.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm like really happy about that. But like, that was like what my taste used to be, like games where we could just like silly and goofy and more competitive, and then I've grown into more cooperative stuff. So like, I enjoy games that are multiplayer. I enjoy games that are single player. I also think there are some games that have a multiplayer, like single player games that have multiplayer that don't need it. Like why did Doom 2016 have a multiplayer mode? I don't know if anybody here played it or liked it, but like, why did you liked it? Please enlighten me.
Okay, so Doom 2016 is an important game for two reasons. On the single-player front, it brought back the boomer shooter revival that you see with games like Dusk, A Medieval, Prodeus, Turbo Overkill, Ultra Kill, Ashes 2033, so on and so forth. But in the multiplayer front, there was a little technique in Doom 2016 in the meta called quick swapping. What you would do is you would fire a weapon, something with a high single target damage with a long reload animation, then you would switch to another weapon, like for example, the super shotgun, you would fire it, and then you'd switch to the Gauss cannon, and then you fire it, and then you swap back to the super shotgun, and see what happens is when you swap weapons like that, it skips the lengthy reload animation. So you would fire the shotgun, switch to the Gauss cannon, fire it, switch back to the super shotgun, fire it, repeat over and over again. This laid the basis for the combat in Doom Eternal, because Doom Eternal is a game that is predicated on quick swapping. If you've ever played that game and you wonder why monsters are so hard to kill sometimes, that's why. The game expects you to switch weapons over and over again, constantly firing, swap, fire, swap, and this is so much fun. Oh my god, I haven't had such a good time playing a first-person shooter after I learned how to do that. And it's why I think Doom Eternal excels, and also why I think a lot of people prefer 2016, even though I don't. There's a schism, in there. But it all started with Doom 2016's multiplayer. Now, Doom Eternal had its battle mode, which I played with Silver and Epic a couple of years ago. And a lot of people poo-pooed it, but I think what they did was they played online with randoms and they didn't play with friends, because that was some of the most fun I've had with multiplayer ever. That one, 3-hour session that we had playing battle mode where I was the Slayer and Epic and Silver were playing as the monsters. Oh my god, we had a blast. It was so much fun. So yeah, anyway.
Yep.
But here's a very important question about that. Was quick swapping a feature in single player for Doom, or was that only a multiplayer thing?
Yes, you could do it in single player, and
so then you didn't need multiplayer, which is my point.
All right.
I needed to make sure before I was like, gotcha. You didn't need multiplayer for it. Granted, I will give you that multiplayer, you probably needed it more than the single player, so it did help pave the way, but I think there's an argument to be made that if you could do it in single player, and that's what a lot of people were doing, and the devs happened to notice that, multiplayer was completely unnecessary, which is the hill that I will die on, because
No, that's totally fair. I actually never played 2016 multiplayer, so I don't have a leg to stand on there, but no, you make a good point.
Yeah, that me neither. I didn't want to bother. Doom 2016 was a fantastic game. No. But the multiplayer in that game didn't influence my taste in gaming. The single player didn't influence my taste in gaming. It's all kind of my taste in gaming is very wide ranging for a number of reasons, but it doesn't. The multiplayer games I've played will dictate future purchases, because I loved Mario Party, so of course I'm going to get Super Mario Party. I'm going to get Mario Party Superstars. But in the sense that I'm not going to go out necessarily and get a Mario Party clone just because it's a Mario Party clone. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. There's my answer to that.
Which at some point, Mike, we still have to do Sonic Shuffle.
I know. I definitely want to still do that.
Sonic Shuffle. Oh my god. That game was fantastic. I know. Listen. I didn't have a Dreamcast growing up, but a buddy of mine did. His name is Donkey Schmonk. He pops into my stream every once in a while.
Yeah, I love Donkey Schmonk. He's a cool dude.
He's hysterical. He had a Dreamcast and put me onto Sonic Shuffle. That game sucked, but it was so much fun.
The game is not fucking aged well at all, but just Eggman going, oh yeah? Oh yeah? No, we have to do Sonic Shuffle at some point, 100%.
Yeah, because Shaq kept asking me. So we'll have to do it. Calkos, how have multiplayer games influenced your taste in gaming?
Okay, so for a long time I was very much a competitive person. Started with Counter-Strike, went into fighting games, and I was very much kind of a dick in my 20s, because my friends always wanted to play Smash Brothers with the items on, and I hated that. And I was very vocal about it even while we were playing, which is not something I would do now. If you set up Smash and asked for items on, I would not complain about it. I don't like items. I think they add a lot of clutter, and I don't want to have to deal with... I want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with the game. Right. But if you were to set up Smash Ultimate turn on the items, maybe set them to low so they don't pop up all the time, I would absolutely play, and I would have a great time.
Yeah.
That's not something I would have done 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I would have been very vocal. I would have been a total dick about it. But there are two games, both Valve games, that really influenced my taste in gaming. The first, if you know me, my entire taste in gaming, this is a single-player game, but my whole taste in gaming, from my youth all the way through to adulthood, is Half-Life. Yeah. Half-Life is my most influential game because it came at a time when I was looking for something more. I was very much a Nintendo guy, but Half-Life just when I was reading through PC Gamer, when I got my gaming PC, they kept saying, oh, Half-Life is great, you gotta get Half-Life, and Half-Life 2 is coming out. So I got Half-Life and Half-Life 2 at the same time, and it was the first game I played that treated me like an adult. It didn't pander, it didn't talk down to me, it didn't assume that I was a 5-year-old kid, it assumed that I was an adult with a job and a mortgage, and I loved it. I still love it to this day. I'm playing through it with Mystic, guys. If you, I'm playing through Half-Life again because she's interested in the series but doesn't want to play it. So, but the multiplayer game that I think really landed like a crater in my backyard was Left 4 Dead. So Left 4 Dead is a game I'm not too big on now, but back in the day, holy shit, I played so much Left 4 Dead. I loved that game, and it's what really turned me on to cooperative games as a whole. The director and the way that it would morph and change the way you would play it to give it infinite replayability was wonderful, and so I played a lot of it. But now, with Left 4 Dead has a problem that I think in that you have to babysit your opponent. Your teammates.
Yeah.
The opposing zombies, the special zombies, the smoker, the hunter, and everything like that, they incapacitate you to a ridiculous degree, so you're constantly having to look at your partners and make sure that they're okay, and I don't like that. This is why I love Deep Rock Galactic so much, because that game is basically Left 4 Dead, except you can be independent. I don't have to worry about my teammates so much. They can take care of themselves for the most part. Cooperation is still a very big aspect, but, you know, you don't have to babysit all the time. The scout can quantum tunnel to another fucking part of the cave, and you'll be fine. So yeah, Left 4 Dead. I think that game really landed like I said, like a crater in my backyard.
Yeah. And that's a really good game. I used to play a lot of Left 4 Dead myself. That game was a lot of fun to play with, like, just a group of people just want to chill, just play some games, kill some zombies, just have a good time. Especially, like, if you have synergy with the right people, just going through, like, each and every level. It just doesn't get any better than that. I love it. I used to love it. That's why I was hoping Back 4 Blood was going to be like this big comeback for something like that, and it ended up not being that.
That game was so disappointing. Holy crap.
Yeah, it really was. It breaks my heart.
Like, I was gonna get it, and then, like, when I was hearing from you guys that it just was not, it was only Left 4 Dead in, not even in my spirit, but they were trying to make something out of it, but it just doesn't feel the same.
No, it just did not work.
And that's the disappointing part about it, because I was looking forward to it, but now it's like, it just came and went. Sucks, but I don't know. Maybe Valve could make a Left 4 Dead 3 and it actually will be just that. But the thing is, remember, Valve doesn't count to 3.
They can't count to 3. Come on.
No, they don't know how to do that.
Well, but there are some other games that, like, have influenced my taste, and for me, how multiplayer games influence my taste in gaming? Simple. Just being able to just play a game with another person, like, whether if it's someone that I know, like a friend or family member, but playing against a total stranger just to see exactly, like, how, like, if it's a competitive game, just to see how good someone else is, because at the end of the day, one lesson that I've learned is the fact that there will always be someone that's going to be better than you in these games, but you still have to do your best. You have to go out there and just keep playing these games. Just learn the tricks of the trade. There are people who actually spend so many hours learning how to play these games, especially in the arcade. Like, just learning each and every move, each and every combo technique, you name it. And I would see these people who you could tell they spent their time in the arcades. And I'm not knocking that, by the way. I'm just saying, like, you could tell their skills versus someone who just wants to just play, like, a random, like, fighting game and then instantly, like, I'm just gonna get my ass kicked. But it's like, okay, so why did I lose? I have to think about why I lost in order to understand how I can get better at the game. And that's not even just limited to fighting games. You can pretty much just apply that to any other multiplayer game. And you wonder what's the one thing I honestly forgot to bring up. There's one big multiplayer game I have not brought up, and I'm actually shocked about this. How did I not bring up Pokemon? How? Because I spent so many years playing Pokemon, like specifically from like the beginning, from Red and Blue, like, and so many years playing competitive Pokemon. I've actually learned how to breed better. I actually learned how to train better and have better Pokemon. And it honestly, to me, battling people has always been fun, especially when you have the right team, you have the right Pokemon to use. And I've gone to tournaments, I've done a lot of online stuff, and it's usually a good time. And if I don't win, I just think about what I could do better and what hasn't been working for me, and I just replace a Pokemon that doesn't work with something that will work and try again. But yeah, but in terms of answering the question of how have multiplayer games influenced my taste in gaming, just being able to play with other people, the social aspect, being able to talk about like what I can do here, what I can do there, and just having a good time. Like, you just want to chill, play some Mario Party with your friends, and argue a little bit about like what happens with the outcome of the game. But at the same time, you just also want to play something cool with your friends, or something like very exhilarating, like all the competitiveness, all the cooperative. No matter what type of games they are, I have fun with them and I enjoy them. So to me, it's just the fact that how much I enjoy playing with other people. That's what influenced my taste in gaming for multiplayer. So now let's get on to the community questions. So we're gonna start off with Shad JV. Oh, but he asked, do you prefer co-op or competitive? Co-op. Competitive. If you would ask me 10 years ago, competitive. But now co-op.
I think we all said co-op, really, at least in a sense.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I think we all went through competitive phases. I think that's just natural, like, as a part of, like, growing up and becoming a person. You have these things where, like, I feel like I need to be the best, and then you start being like, I'm having a lot more fun having fun. Yeah. I think is what people generally gravitate towards, too, as they get older. Exactly.
Like, I know that D-Dog, she asked us, like, what is your favorite multiplayer game? We already, like, answered that question, like, earlier, like, what the favorite multiplayer games. But here's a good question. How do you, from Dragon, how do you handle repeated losses in a multiplayer game? Does it give you a chin up, or does it discourage you from playing more depending on the game? Like,
okay.
That kind of depends.
Yeah, it sometimes I can have fun losing. Like, I've been enjoying Street Fighter 6 Ranked, which is not something I thought I would enjoy. Considering I tend to lose my temper nowadays with competitive games, and even back then, like, it was really frustrating to lose rank points. But now it's because Street Fighter 6 is just so much fun to play. I find I can handle losses in that game a lot easier than usual. But my rule of thumb, if you're having a bad day and you know you're having a bad day, stop and play something else. Like, if you're having a bad time, you're just gonna lose more. Like, just stop.
Yeah, and then when that happens, you get like me and you throw your controller and break a few controllers, like I've done back in the day.
Or if you're like me,
even now I've done that.
Or if you're like me, I've actually yelled at some people, but I've stopped that, and I've gotten a lot better. I try my best not to do that.
Like
Mike
I
and
said, if you're having a shit day, definitely try not to play the game.
Yeah, like Mike and I, we stopped playing Sea of Thieves because they fixed the glitch where you weren't alone on the sea, and so it would constantly repopulate, and now we have to deal with screaming kids telling us to KMS. Like, we stopped playing because we don't want to fucking deal with that.
It's unfortunate because everything else about Sea of Thieves is wonderful, but yeah, if you gotta deal with the toxicity, what's the point? There's like no reason to put yourself through that if you don't have to.
Yeah.
OddHour.
Yeah, I think when you're getting your ass beat, when you're getting your ass beat left and right, nothing you're doing is working, so on and so forth. Like you said, Calkos, just put the controller down. Just put I think maybe once or twice in my life I've thrown a controller out of frustration, but I didn't throw it with the intent of breaking it. I threw it just like off to the side, like where it was gonna hit the pillows on my bed. One time it like rolled a little too far and it got a little dinged up, but it was never like with the intent of causing the controller harm or anything like that.
No, I've done that before, sadly.
Which, like, that happens, and I understand that. But, like, I'm surprised because I was a very angry person for a very long time. I would get angry very, very quickly. But instead of getting, like, physical about it, I would cry out of frustration. I was a crier as a kid, for sure. A lot of waterworks growing up. So, like, I remember the first time I remember really, really crying to a point where I probably would have thrown a controller, was racing against the Human Torch in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Ooh.
The last race in Ultimate Spider-Man against the Human Torch. I don't know if it was because I was too young, I don't know what it was, but like, true, honest to God, tears of just, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, I'm doing everything right, and I'm still losing to this. Anyway. Like, the best way to deal with so many losses back to back, it's not your night. Stop pushing yourself. Put the controller down and like play something else.
Yeah.
Like there are a million games at your disposal. Even if you don't have that many games, you have at least one other game at your disposal. And if you don't, just walk away. Like, there's no need to constantly expose yourself. Like how you guys walked away from Sea of Thieves, or at least for a little bit. Why are you going to constantly expose yourself to that? If I'm trying to get a character in Smash Ultimate into Elite, like I've been trying to get like Olimar into Elite for a long time. I hate Olimar, but it's a fun thing to do. I get my ass beat left and right. Stop doing that. Just put down the controller. Play anything else.
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do for your mental health. It's just be like, all right, this has gone too far. I'm not doing well. I'm done. It's a very important skill to be able to look at something and be like, this isn't happening right now. I will come back to this later. I cannot do this now.
Yeah. Like, for me, like, the main thing is that if I ever lose way too many times to the point where I start getting frustrated, I play a different game or I do a different activity to get my mind off of it, and then I'll go back to that game when I'm ready to go back to it. So I try not to let myself get angry or get frustrated too much. Sometimes there's going to be some BS moments that will pop up here and there that's completely out of your control, and that's fine, but I'm not going to let that make me feel angry or whatever. Instead, I'll just think about what I can do to do better in the game rather than like just get angry and frustrated or even take it out on somebody that doesn't deserve it. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for that one. So next one, from Professor Icepick. How do you feel about the impression in the games media from some years back that multiplayer games would essentially completely push single player games out of the market? I do not think that's the case. I do not think that's the case at all.
There was a case to be made for a while that multiplayer games would complete, because during the Xbox 360 PS3 era, like, back in the day, you'd have one console, you'd invite friends over, and, you'd all play the game. But in the Xbox 360 PS3 era, it was a sense of you had to play online to get the best experience. So it was 4 consoles, 4 copies of the game, and you would sell more. But it's very clear now that the hunger for single-player games never went away and never will. There will always be a market for people who want to play exclusively single-player games.
Yeah. Mike?
But I mean, what in terms of? Wait, repeat the question one more time.
How do you feel about the impression in the games media from some years back that multiplayer games would essentially completely push single player games out of the market?
They must have been on some really interesting stuff to think that that would actually happen, because single player games and multiplayer games both have a place in the market. Obviously, some people want to compete with each other or co-op with each other, but some people just want a single player game that they can just play through for the story or the world or whatever.
Yeah. OddHour?
But honestly, yeah, I don't see how that would be even like a possible thought. Single player and multiplayer games will always have a place in the market.
Exactly.
I mean, I tend to prefer multiplayer games to single player games, but even then, like if I look at my top 10 favorite games of all time, more than half of them are single player games.
Yeah.
Like my favorite game of all time is Hades. Like that's a single player game through and through. Half-Life, single player. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, single player games. Like Jesus.
Yeah.
I think we're all forgetting how prominent multiplayer gaming was back when, like, let's be real for a second here. The 360 PS3 era is when gaming hit like a much bigger mainstream. Everybody was talking about gaming. It was that whole argument of, you know, the Mortal Kombat resurgence where it's like, do video games make people violent? All these people are getting into these online rooms and cursing each other out and calling each other slurs. I heard my child get called the N-word the other night while playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Like, that was what people were discussing when they were talking about video games. So in that regard, nobody really thought about the single player aspect of things, because almost every single player game had a multiplayer aspect. Like Halo had a fantastic story. A lot of people talk only about the multiplayer. That's like how you share your experience with people. It had co-op single player, like it had the co-op a story, but that was a multiplayer experience. So you got to remember how prominent multiplayer was, because like you said, Calcos, like selling more copies, selling more editions of the game, just to get more and more people involved in an online experience. Because online was still coming out and it was still hot and fresh, and people were still discussing it at its peak almost. Because yeah, you had it on like Xbox, like Xbox Live was a thing on the original Xbox, but 360 like dropped and you had to pay for it, and then PS3 was free. So that whole console war thing of, you know, you're paying for multiplayer, now Sony charges for it and things like that, like there was a time frame not that long ago in the grand scheme of things where it was going to be multiplayer.
Yeah.
That being said, single player never really left that era. Like, even when multiplayer was still big, there was single player things. Call of Duty, I think, is the biggest example. They still included a story in every Call of Duty game. I don't know anybody who's played every story for the call. Like, some people play it for like fun, just to see what it's like, and they find out about glitches and things like that. But like, no one's ever come to me and been like, bro, dude, OddHour, have you played the Black Ops 3 story? I have no idea what happens in that game. In terms of like that, it means nothing to me. The single player means nothing to me for that game. But then all of a sudden now we're like, Sony's dominating everything. Look at God of War. Look at The Last of Us. Didn't need a multiplayer aspect. Whatever. That's its own bag of, like, whatever. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Look at how many fantastic single-player games are coming out now because they finally realized that single-player was still like a want. They never forgot. That was just the media trying to put a spin on it.
Yeah.
Game devs still included the single-player things. It was up to the player to ignore it, which for Call of Duty they did. For Halo, they sure as hell did not. Reach was a fantastic story. 4 was at least still fun to play to an extent. 5 was a video game. Infinite was a video game.
The video game of all time.
The video game of all time. But it's important to remember that even though the media and coverage on video games was like, yeah, multiplayer is the wave, there won't be single player games in the future. As a gamer, as a player, you knew that it wasn't. That meant, like what Mike said, that never went away, and it was never going to go away. Because as much as we're social creatures, we like having our me time. We like being able to play with a God of War. We like being able to play a Halo 3 single player, to like play as Master Chief and just wreck the Covenant and things like that. Like, that was still there, and we knew that, so we didn't feel it. But because people were constantly talking about multiplayer, and like through the lens of gaming, just multiplayer, online, it seemed like that's where things were headed. But dead wrong. They were dead wrong then. If they say it at this point, they're dead wrong now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I know where the turning point for that too was. Like, 3 of the biggest games in 2011 were Portal 2, Dark Souls, and The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, 2 of those games did have a multiplayer component, but that was never the main focus. They were just like small add-ons that you could ignore entirely for the single-player content. And those 3 games did gangbusters. Portal 2 is one of the most celebrated video games of all time. Skyrim has sold tens of millions of copies, and Dark Souls completely upended the gaming landscape forever.
Yeah.
That's not even counting Minecraft, which came out 1.0 in that exact same year.
Yeah.
Like, that was the turning point right there when people realized, okay, single-player games still have a market. We can still make money off of it. So.
Yep. And the one thing I will bring up before we go to the next question that was asked is that I remember there was something, I think it was someone from EA that mentioned that that single-player games were not, I don't think they said single-player games were dying, but they said something that it wasn't something that was going to be sustainable or something, and they were proven wrong, especially in 2017, when that year, some of the biggest single-player games came out. That was Nier Automata, Persona 5, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and so much more. So many games that were single-player. Like, the top games of that year were single-player, and especially the following
Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey. And like the following year, we had God of War. We had Marvel Spider-Man, for example. Those games. Like, and it got to the point where eventually EA released Jedi Fallen Order, which did well. And now we got Jedi Survivor. But yeah, single-player games are not going to go anywhere. Multiplayer games will still be around, but they both coexist in the same universe. So one's not going to take away from the other. Next question comes from Epic Man. Do you prefer playing multiplayer in a single-player game to play with friends instead of doing it alone? Like, for example, Resident Evil 5, New Super Mario Bros. U, Cuphead, stuff like that. Because for me, it depends.
Yeah.
Same.
I would say if it's well implemented co-op campaign, then yeah, I would definitely always like to bring friends along. Just shooting the shit. Like, I remember Halo 3 co-op with my brother. I think Halo 3's campaign worked so well in co-op seamlessly that we played through it multiple times. We even played through it on Legendary. And that game fucking sucks on Legendary.
No.
It does depend. I'm trying to think of like a game with a single player campaign with a co-op mode that kind of sucked. I can't really think of one though.
Yeah. Mike?
Well, I mean, for me, it depends, because legit, depending on the type of game, like for something like Halo or something, I feel like multiplayer would be a lot more fun for an experience like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, for Sonic Superstars coming out in a few months, I don't know how I feel about that yet in terms of co-op or single player. Like, if Sonic Superstars is good enough where, it'll be able to balance out everybody running stupid quick, yeah, I'm down for it in multiplayer. I mean, we are going to still do a multiplayer playthrough regardless.
Yeah. Shad?
But, yeah.
Not Shad. OddHour. Sorry, it's just Shad asked a different question that I'm going to answer in a minute, but...
Gotcha.
Sorry, OddHour.
You're good.
What do you call it? The mark of a good single player game is that it can still be fun in multiplayer. So like New Super Mario Bros. U works because you can be a little competitive. Super Mario 3D Land or 3D World, can be competitive, but it's still fun on its own. Like a good game that has a co-op addition to its single player is like the mark of a good single player. If it can be fun with one person, it can be fun with 2 people. Not every game can say that, but I'm struggling to think of one that does have a co-op that isn't worth playing, and I really can't think of one. I can't think of one that's like I would rather play this alone. Like, unless you hate.
I've got a good one. Have you ever heard of a game called Divinity: Original Sin?
I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Okay, so it's basically a tabletop RPG that you can play with. You play on your computer. It's tactics based. It's very old school, very open ended. You can play the whole thing in co-op. Me, Mike, a friend of ours named Steph, and Silver tried to all play it together, and we bounced right off it. Whereas Steph played the whole thing in single player and absolutely loved it. I don't think the co-op was very well implemented in that game. I think that's like the one example I can really think of.
Yeah.
I think some people might be able to make an argument that Borderlands might be better single player than multiplayer, just from a loot aspect.
Okay.
Because I think Borderlands 2 was shared loot, whereas Borderlands 3 was not. So, like, if there was a drop from a particular boss, only one person in the lobby could pick it up. I don't feel this way, but I think you could make the argument that someone would prefer playing Borderlands by themselves just from a loot aspect. Or at least, not necessarily only or exclusively playing by themselves, but prefer so that they can get their own things to then play with their friends and not have to worry about drops. I don't feel this way, but I'm trying to think of a limiting factor that a single-player game with a multiplayer aspect would have, and that is really the only thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a stretch, but that's just from where I sit.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at Divinity again, yeah, that game was a mess.
Yeah, I just can't really think too much of what multiplayer games I would prefer, like single player, or what multiplayer games I would prefer just multiplayer. It's something I have to think about, so I don't think I can answer that question. But it just depends in general. Shad asks, how do you feel about asymmetrical co-op? Like, each player has different abilities or mechanics.
Well, a bunch of us really like Dead by Daylight. So asymmetrical co-op can work. There was a game that I really enjoyed called Death Garden. And Death Garden was asymmetrical, a lot like... It was made by the developers of Dead by Daylight, and it was basically 5 runners and 1 hunter. And the idea is that the runners would have to complete an objective like unlocking keys or capturing points, and the hunter, their goal is to just kill. And that game failed because in the first iteration of the game, the runners were super strong. Like, they had abilities to blind, to slow down, to just hamper the hunter's ability to just play the game. And so people lost interest really quickly. So they rebooted it as Death Garden Blood Harvest. And in that game, the hunter was way too strong. They had surveillance equipment all over the arena. It was difficult to go 2 feet without getting detected, and the hunter could kill you in 1 second. And so the game failed. So I paid $30 for a game that died in about a year. So I want my money back, behavior. Asymmetric games are very tough to balance, and it's the reason why you don't see them a lot. So, like, Dead by Daylight is an anomaly in that case. It's been going on for 7 years now, and constantly updating. It's getting fucking Nicolas Cage, the guy, is going to be playable in Dead by Daylight.
Hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, also going revealing what Derek the Brony was going on about Dragon Ball Breakers. I say fuck that game with my entire chest, from the fact that you had to literally pay in order to get abilities in order to actually do decent in that game, and I found that to be absolute garbage.
Yep.
And now for season 3, they apparently got the Ginyu Force as the next villain and whatnot. I'm like, yo, you guys couldn't have come up with some other better villains? Like, I know you already have the main ones like Majin Buu and Cell and Frieza and whatnot, but no, you couldn't have tapped a little bit deeper into some other ones like Janemba or some of the other deeper ones.
That would have been nice.
I don't know, but the fact that you had to just you had to basically go into the gacha machine to get abilities for both the villains and the heroes, and that the heroes were stupidly overpowered.
Yeah.
I said the hell with that.
Oh, yeah.
I am so disappointed to hear that game is bad, because I wanted it for a long time and I forgot about it when it came out. So now...
Oh yeah, no, I really wanted to play it with people, but then I got frustrated, and that actually was one of the games that made me break a controller.
Sounds like it if you have to go through a gacha machine to get any sort of abilities. That kind of sucks. Asymmetrical co-op, I don't know, I really like X-Men Arcade. Like, everybody, it's a beat 'em up, but like, you know, I feel like the characters each had their own abilities, their own range, special abilities and things like that. Like, I like it. I like that not everybody's just a carbon copy of themselves. It's like having somebody be able to cover a different aspect. Like, someone could be the long-range person, someone could be the close-range person, 2 people can be mid-range and things like that. Like, I think it's fun. I don't really see, like... I think Mario 3D World might be a really good argument for plus of asymmetrical co-op, because each character has their own abilities, right? Like, Mario's the balance.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, no, I've never played it with more than I never played it with anybody, but like it's really fun that like I seen gameplay of it where everybody's a different thing, and like Toad running super fast, Peach being able to float, Luigi jumping high and being a little bit faster than Mario and things like that. Like that's fun. That makes it fun because it makes everybody have their own thing. Like the power-ups are all the same, whatever, but like their core mechanics are different, and that makes it fun. Because if they were all exactly the same, I think it would be kind of boring. Like they wouldn't really stand out. It wouldn't be anything unique to the person. They would just be like, at that point, why wouldn't they just be gray blobs that you could just run around? That's the whole point of like fleshing out a character and their personality and like their gameplay and things like that.
Yeah, like Mario 3D World, I know when me, Silver, Matt, and CTK were playing it together, we cheesed some of the levels to get some of the green stars that we ended up missing, and it was really fun to just like try to figure out how to combine our abilities to grab stars. We'd stack on top of each other, throwing ourselves at stars and whatnot. It was a really good time. Also, in terms of Dead by Daylight, like I love Dead by Daylight still. I mean, I would not mind playing that again, especially now we get to play as Nicolas Cage. Like, why not?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like giving that one a shot. I haven't played a lot of it, but it's interesting. But games like that.
Well, also it reminds you another asymmetrical game that I wanted us to get into, but it was too expensive. If it ever goes on sale and ever gets off Epic, I would love to try out Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed.
Oh yeah, they bring that to Steam. I'll get that. But yeah, and also a moment of silence to Friday the 13th because it's gonna get shut down soon.
Yeah, Matt's crying in the corner.
Yeah, like basically F and chat for that at this point because it's unfortunate that basically F for Friday the 13th because that game got screwed so hard and now it's gonna get shut down. Next question comes from Dragon. I have another good one. If you'll take, alright, he says, does every new video game need to have some kind of multiplayer component, even if it's just leaderboards or comparing stats with other people, or is it okay for a game to just focus on being a whole single player experience? Like, how do you feel about these single player games that just tacking on multiplayer modes, mostly to have those modes where they're obviously not fleshed out?
So it's not the end of the world if there's like no multiplayer stuff in a game that's meant to be fully single player, but having stuff like leaderboards also kind of helps me want to get better at certain levels and stuff. Like I know for a fact for a while, Calcos, you and Silver were going hard on Neon White trying to get good at those levels as well.
Yeah. When the demo came out, we were going crazy trying to one up each other's times. I guess it depends on the game. Some games, there's no point in having a leaderboard, but some games, like Neon White, for example, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes absolute sense why that game would have a leaderboard, and the game would not be as good without a leaderboard.
Yeah.
I think... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say nothing. Go ahead.
I think some games don't need them but have them. Like the one that comes to mind for me is Super Mario Odyssey, having a leaderboard for like the jump rope challenge and the racetrack and things like that. Like it's cool, it's interesting, but like it didn't need it didn't need that thing because like first of all, people can glitch that very easily. Like I'm pretty sure people have, which is why like those exactly, like things like that where it's like a single player game that's easily exploitable in that regard. I feel like it just kind of dampens the experience because it's disheartening, like trying to beat a time that you're never going to achieve because you just don't, like it's either physically impossible to do or it's just unattainable because you don't have that kind of time to dedicate to it.
Yeah.
So like leaderboards in a single player game aren't super, I'm not big on them for some things, but like I don't mind it, right? Like if it's clearly not fleshed out, that sucks, but there's nothing I could do about that. Like we have single-player games now that have zero multiplayer aspects, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a good single-player game that has no multiplayer.
Agreed.
There are very few multiplayer games that have no single-player, I think, or maybe I'm wrong about that now. I haven't been paying close enough attention, but yeah, I think single-player games with bad multiplayer is bad. Like there's just no point. Like focus it. It's hard to argue that a single-player game that has a bad multiplayer means that the single-player game is worse as a result. Like, I don't know. I think Gears of War 5 had a messy online. Like, from what I remember seeing people play, because I have Gears of War 5, but I never played it. It felt like super laggy, and everybody was just getting one-shotted no matter what. And even old Gears of War, like the person who was the host of the lobby, just like the way the game decided, they had zero lag, but everybody else had super lag and things like that. Like, it didn't dampen the single-player experience of those games, but it didn't. I mean, the multiplayer was just whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think it's inherently a bad thing for a single-player game, like a very clearly single-player game, to have multiplayer aspects. I just think, like we've been saying, I think it depends on the game.
Yeah, like it's just not the end of the world. Like as Mike said, like it's fine to have it, but it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't really need multiplayer. Not every game needs to have multiplayer. I prefer some single-player games just to focus more on the actual single-player aspect of it rather than just putting multiplayer just to be there. But I remember back in the 360 era, like playing some classic Genesis games that have online leaderboards, like for example Sonic, where like they have time attacks and all that stuff, and so many people, like the top 100 people, hacked that shit because they managed to actually get
0 seconds or 4 seconds. It was ridiculous.
Times you cannot possibly get on your own. Like, it's bullshit, but yeah. So, moving on. Dari asks, what are your feelings on MMOs, whether they be FPS, RPG, or anything else in between? My quick answer is I don't play MMOs.
No, I mean, it depends on the MMO. Like, a lot of MMOs were what I ended up growing up with. Like, you know, like I said, Toontown, Vindictus, and MapleStory were some of my absolute favorite MMORPGs. I still play them to this day every now and again, but
yeah.
Other than that, I guess it kind of depends, but I don't really play too many other MMOs.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I never got super into MMOs. There was a point in my life where it was like either get a year's worth of World of Warcraft to get into it, or get a bunch of like WWE merch, and I picked the merch. I decided not to do World of Warcraft. So like, yeah, I don't regret it. Like, it was super fun. I got like World Heavy, like Undertaker was champion at the time, so I got like World Heavyweight belt. I got his hat, and like it was dope. But I don't know, like MMOs never really stuck out to me, to the point where I can't even think of a different one besides World of Warcraft off the top of my head. Like Toontown, you mentioned, didn't play it when it dropped, wanted to. Yeah, the MMOs were never like a big thing for me growing up. Maybe because I didn't really play on the computer for a long time until I reached like maybe late high school. But yeah, MMOs just kind of flew over my head as I grew up.
Yeah. What about you, Calkos?
Well, what was the question again? Sorry.
Oh, like how do you feel about MMOs?
Oh, okay. I got to max level in Final Fantasy XIV this September to October, and I stopped playing. And it reminded me that I'm not attracted to MMOs because once I reach a level cap, even if there is actually more stuff to do, more classes to level up, more quests to do, I feel like I'm finished, and I want to move on to the next game in the pile. Like, a lot of games, MMOs are lifestyle games, and they're games that you have to constantly stick with and play and abandon everything else that you want to play, and I'm just not into that. I tend to play, if I'm really attracted to a game, I'll play like 100 hours of it, and then I'll move on to something else. And maybe I will return to the game someday, but, you know, I'm not going to sit there and play it all the time forever. I want to move on to other games and play other games on the pile.
Yeah.
So I used to play a lot of RuneScape.
Never played RuneScape.
When I was a tiny baby boy. But, yeah.
I tried out RuneScape 3 recently because a friend put me onto it. It was fun, but I haven't really had time to get back into it. I feel like they're fine. I don't think they're like good or bad. I think they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next one is from Destiny. With the fact that many multiplayer games becoming these live service games, do you feel that we'll ever get a multiplayer co-op game that doesn't make us spend more just to enjoy it? Welcome to like modern gaming, where this is pretty much what the norm is going to be.
I cannot stress enough, Deep Rock Galactic. It has all the things that people hate about live service games. It has lots of pointless unlockables. It has a battle pass. It's got a little bit of paid for DLC for cosmetics. But the thing is, it's not heavily monetized. The Battle Pass is completely free. All of the cosmetics you can earn in-game just by finding loot crates that you find on the ground, that you have to pick up batteries and bring them to the loot crate to unlock it. It is sort of like an Overton window where we look into Deep Rock Galactic and we see what happens if games were regulated like they should, and you couldn't use manufacturer discontent or purposeful obsolescence to make people spend way more money than they should. Fortnite, I like Fortnite, but it suffers from this problem immensely. If you don't buy that battle pass, like there's a free tier and there's a paid for tier, and if you look at the beginning tiers of the battle pass, you know, from levels 1 through about maybe 50, 55, you earn a lot, but eventually it starts to drop off. And once you reach level like 68, the game says, nope, you're not earning anything else unless you pay for the higher tier. No. That is manufactured discontent, and it is not healthy. It's manipulative, and it causes addiction in kids.
Also, yeah, welcome to Fall Guys with that same thing too. They do that also.
Yeah, it sucks. It's shit, and it's something that should be regulated. I know some countries like Belgium and France don't allow that stuff anymore. Hawaii doesn't allow it, but for some reason we're just not regulating it. It's gambling aimed at loot crates. Are just fuck loot boxes. Fuck loot boxes. Loot
boxes are literally fucking gambling for kids.
It's gambling aimed at kids and the neurodivergent. It's meant to manipulate you, and it's disgusting. That's all I have to say on that matter.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. Yeah.
Also, I'm just tired of live service games because you lost a lot of good live service games too soon, like shit like the Rumbleverse.
We lost like 5 at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we lost Rumbleverse. We lost
Knockout City.
Knockout City, which, well, mostly because we still have the private servers, but consoles dead. Pac-Man 99 is going to end soon. We also lost well, only in Japan and I think in Korea, Mega Man X Dive or Rockman X Dive, as what it's called over there. That's ending over there soon. We're still gonna have it here for a while longer in North America, but yeah. There have been a couple others. Yeah, Rumbleverse was definitely one. And a game like Multiverses, it's completely inactive for a year because they're going to fine-tune a lot of that stuff. By the time it comes back, no one's going to care anymore. That sucks. Game was really fun, but they kind of fumbled the bag with that game. Decided to just say, oh, we're going to shut off the servers for a year, and then we'll be back with a big wave and all that. No, you're not. It's not. No one's going to care anymore. Like, whatever.
Now,
go ahead.
There have been 45 games that were canceled in 2023. A bunch that we haven't heard of. There are some Korean MMOs and stuff, but we lost Blaseball, which I had a lot of fun with before. We're losing Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people. We're losing Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt already.
Yeah.
We're losing Dreams. We're losing Evolve. We're losing Paladins. We're losing Auto Chess. We're losing Fire Emblem Fates. We lost the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U eShop exclusives. The list goes on and on and on. Live service, it's too oversaturated. People have already chosen their live service games. They're not going to move to something else. Like, people have chosen Fortnite, Apex Legends, PUBG, maybe a few others, like League of Legends, Dota 2, and Counter-Strike, and that you can't. This isn't like a single player or a multiplayer game where people can buy and then move on when they're ready to move on. This is a genre where you have to have a large audience of people that are playing nothing but this game constantly and feeding into the monetization. And you can't do that when you're releasing 200 live service titles every fucking year.
Which is why a game like Omega Strikers, as good as it looks, I don't think I can invest in that, because I don't want to play a game like a live service type game, love it so much, and then it gets to a point where a lot of other people lose interest, then I lose interest, and then the game shuts down, and then the cycle is a rinse and repeat. It happens a lot. It's happened so many years. I've seen so many great games that you could just play online, free to play with your friends, and then it just goes away. Another comes in, and it just keeps on going. This is not okay. And the fact that companies just, I mean, I get if they shut down because companies can't justify keeping up a server for a game that not many people are playing, that's one thing. But if it's a game that's popular, like Rumbleverse, here's the problem. The game was only up for 6 months. And now it's dead. And there's nothing that could be done to bring it back. While Knockout City at least has 2 years. At least it has 2 years. And you could still play the game on Steam with private servers. So at least there's some solace to that compared to many other games. It sucks. Live service, honestly, it just doesn't really cut it to me anymore. Like, I might play a few games, but that's about it.
I think what happened with a lot of... Sorry.
We lost Spellbreak. Fuck.
Yeah, we did.
Spellbreak was so much fun. That game shouldn't have been a battle royale. It should have been like a 16v16 Battlefield-style deathmatch. I think it would have worked really well if it was like that, but it's not. Anyway, OddHour, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think what happened with live service games, like with Fortnite and PUBG and how competitive they were when they launched, I think they set a standard that no one can really attain because they were early in this, like, the free-to-play model and how they defined it and how it still maintains to the point where Epic bought Fall Guys and is now on the Fortnite model. Like, you can't... It's very, very difficult to take down Fortnite as, like, the leading free-to-play game. Overwatch did it, and I hate that Overwatch did it. Overwatch has its own problems, Blizzard has their own problems, but just looking at the game itself, like... You have all these people who paid to play the game on the consoles originally, then to switch to a free-to-play battle pass system because, hey, it turns out it's free money if you just do what Fortnite does. Do what Fortnite does. Do what Fortnite does. Overwatch is never going to get canceled because it has Blizzard money behind it and because it established itself in the same time frame. But like you said, it's very difficult to introduce a new live service game to take that down. Like it's just not going to happen because so many people are already ingrained in these games. Fall Guys, as fun as it is, like it's been on the downfall for me for a couple different reasons. The water season wasn't fun for me personally. Like,
it was an absolute mess. I hated it.
Was.
And this was the first season, or maybe like I'm pretty sure it was the first season right after the free-to-play model dropped. Like all consoles, and it was just super underwhelming. So it's like launching that or relaunching that with that underwhelming thing. Like it didn't feel good. Fall Guys, thankfully, is still around because it is a fun game at its core. But like,
they can only last for so long.
Exactly, it can only last for so long. Fortnite has just so much behind it because it led the way for this free-to-play, pay-for-fun, or pay-for-skins and cosmetics and things like that. Loot boxes are their own thing, and I hate them. Like, they're despicable. It's truly ridiculous that they got as far as they did, and I'm glad we don't really have them as much as we did. I'm glad people are seeing that they're terrible.
Yeah.
But, like, I think it's difficult to justify bringing in a new online service now. I wish Super Mario 35 had stuck around because I think that game would have been really, really fun if they had fleshed it out like they did Pac-Man 99 and Tetris 99. But I don't really know how you would do that. It's not my job to figure it out, but I think it would have been a fantastic game if they had taken what they did with Pac-Man and Tetris and put that to Super Mario 35. Bless you.
Yeah. Bless you. Like, my thing is that in the case of like all these games, I just think that there should be a limit to like at least be on, like, keep the game going until the generation is over at least, or like when there's no one actually playing the game anymore. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to say. It's hard. But yeah, that's a really like see, here's the thing. Live service stuff is something that we talked about, and it's a topic that we all as a group like experience from one time or another. So this actually hits us differently. So yeah, we went on with that one for a while. But there's a few more questions. Which multiplayer game was your very first taste of playing online? This one's from Maverick.
I think for me, Oh, sorry. If you have an answer, Shellshock, go for it.
You first.
For me, it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I got the gold edition of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 for Xbox 360 before I even had an Xbox 360. And then when I got it, I was playing single player, and then I was like, I didn't know Xbox Live was a thing. I was in middle school when this was happening. So like a bunch of my friends also had Xbox and told me, you know that wire you stick into your computer? Take it out, stick it in the Xbox, and then let me know. So I did that, started playing Ultimate Alliance, and then I mentioned earlier Halo 3. Halo 3 very quickly became my most played game because multiplayer online was super fun, and the story online was super fun. So couple that with making and connecting with friends at middle school, Halo 3 and Marvel Ultimate Alliance Gold Edition were my first taste of online multiplayer.
Yep. For me, it was Mario Kart DS. Because,
same here.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything online, and I didn't get the PS2 online adapter until after I got my DS, actually, because my brother was using it to play SOCOM. But yeah, Mario Kart DS, that was mine. Calcos?
For me, it was Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart DS. Basically, I just remember going online and just enjoying like making my own custom emblem and just racing people online pretty much back then.
Yeah, because like playing the Mario Kart games online were a lot of fun.
That's pretty much it for me.
Calcos?
So, I remember booting up my dad's old off-white Windows 98 HP computer and loading up a little game called Age of Empires 2. That was my first foray into online video gaming, and I absolutely loved it. Even if I sucked at it, it's still one of my favorite games, even though I still suck at it. I still have Definitive Edition, and that's something we really should play at some point. Yeah, that was my first foray. But my other first foray in the game that I played a lot more was Call of Duty 1. The very first one, the World War II shooter that came out in 2003, and its expansion pack, United Offensive, that came out in 2004. That I played a ridiculous amount. Like, a ridiculous amount. I loved that game.
Yeah. Let's see. So, next question, we got two more. Technically, two people. The next one is from Gray54. What are your most cherished memories playing multiplayer games with your friends and or community members? It's really hard for me to pick one. There's a lot.
I have one. So it was late 2007. I was having a sleepover with three other friends, and one of them brought their Xbox 360 over with a copy of Rock Band.
Yeah.
We played that all night long. It was so much fun. Like, my parents ordered us pizza, and we were loading up on soda. We were having so much fun. I will never forget that night.
Yeah. Mike?
Not for me. It's mostly just been a lot of the stuff that we've done with like Valheim and Mario Party and all the, especially the Mario Party sessions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rattle off a few. When I was a kid, my friend who moved to Pennsylvania, we played Guitar Hero. He put me on to Rock Band. Then my sister came home and wanted Guitar Hero. So first time playing Rock Band is a big one. Super Mario 64 online with a bunch of the people that Mike hosted when we played Super Mario 64 online.
Yeah.
That was super fun. I'll never forget that. That was such a fun time.
I want to do that again though, because I know we could do a better speedrun record for the 16 of us.
Absolutely. We could demolish that record.
Oh no, 100%. I want to set that up at some point.
Are we still the only ones on the leaderboard?
I'll check while OddHour is rattling off. I'll let you know.
I had a bunch of college friends come over when Mewtwo dropped at Smash 4, and I didn't get a code because there was a glitch on Nintendo's side. So a bunch of people came over for Mewtwo and did not play with Mewtwo. What do you call it? There was a point where Random came into a stream once and brought like 18 people to come play Fall Guys the night that custom servers dropped. Never saw them again after that, but we had like 30 people in a custom lobby. It was fantastic. That was a really big, really solid memory. Really, like, had so much fun doing that with custom games. I play Mario Party Superstars a lot with some IRL friends and a community member that I really, really like. So, like, those are just really quick, a bunch off the top of my head that were fantastic.
Honestly, all those...
Still in first place for that, by the way, Mario 64 co-op.
Good.
Yay.
Honestly, for me, if I had to pick any, Because like obviously like the Mario Party stuff, like all the stuff that we play together, I will cherish that. But I will always cherish the times where it's like it was me, Shad, Silver. Sometimes it would be Dragon, and other times it would be Mike when we were playing Monster Hunter Rise. Those are some fun times. Like, regardless of how people like the game, I still had a great time playing with you guys, and especially we talk a lot about like other things outside of Monster Hunter, just having conversation while playing the game. And we always somehow managed to have topics about food.
Yeah, we pretty much did have a lot of topics about food.
We did.
That also reminds me, the nights that we sailed on Sea of Thieves before the toxicity happened will also be some of my most cherished memories, too.
God, I'm glad we have Valheim. Like, we've mentioned it a billion times before, but I'm so happy we have Valheim.
Yeah.
There's two memories that I remember, too. There's the battle mode stuff that I did with Silver and Epic. I still go back and watch that stream. It was just us yelling at each other for 3 hours straight. It was so much fun. I had another one in my head. Crap. I lost it. Maybe I'll get it back.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I would like to actually go back and finish Rise before the next generation Monster Hunter game would come out.
We might get it tomorrow. Capcom Showcase.
We'll see. Though, and I will say, if it turns out they don't have one, but after I finish Rise, you know what I want to do? I actually want to play Monster Hunter World. But
Yes.
That's not the only Monster Hunter game I want to play. Stay tuned for future news on something Monster Hunter related, because next year is the 20th anniversary of Monster Hunter. So you'll see what I mean soon.
I will gladly reboot Hunter World just to play that again.
Yeah.
Make sure you get Iceborne.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Let me see. So the last person to ask questions was Derek DeBroni.
I remember what it was.
Okay.
So my friend Chris Exomnus, you guys know him. We ended up both picking up back in February. We both picked up a copy of Factorio.
Oh yeah.
And holy shit, we were playing that game for 10 hours a day for like a week straight. We got addicted to Factorio. Boy, Factorio's a good friggin' game, and it's so much fun. So co-op in that game is limitless. I've seen people set up servers with 500 players. It's ridiculously stupid. Yeah, we had a lot of fun playing Factorio. We also have a lot of fun playing Satisfactory too. That's another wonderful multiplayer game that I recommend to everybody. It'll probably go on sale for like $14 in the 3 weeks. So
yeah. Anyway, let me read the last two questions. They're both from Derek DeBroni, and the first one is, what is the worst player type you've ever encountered in a online multiplayer game? Like, for example, elitists, campers, and all that stuff.
Campers, I've never bothered, because campers are just playing the game. You know, it's not a toxic strategy. You know, you don't hate the player, hate the game. If you don't like a game that allows camping, don't play it. I hate it when people are constantly yelling at me because I'm not keeping up with them. This is the reason why I stopped playing Overwatch, because people were constantly criticizing me for the characters that I was playing, and like I was constantly having to play support because nobody else wanted to play support, and I hate playing support. And so like it's people like that demand a lot out of somebody else that's just trying to play the fucking game, man.
Yeah. All right. Do either before I give mine answer, do either one of you have any answers, Mike or OddHour?
I could literally just go off and just say Sea of Thieves right off the bat, because literally when I got to Pirate Legend, this dude was calling Silver the N-word on the stream, and we were also getting camped as I was trying to celebrate getting Pirate Legend, and all I remember is Silver just going up to him, going, "Nothing personnel, kid."
Yeah,
literally pissing them off like hell.
Yeah, we were like, no mercy. We spawn camped those motherfuckers so hard because they.
No, there was plenty of nights where freaking Sea of Thieves like made us pissed off. My worst night was still the fucking Shrouded Ghost when we were trying to beat that mission. We had the Ghost Armada and another fucking player ship trying to kill us and shit, and then we never got to beat the Shrouded Ghost.
Yeah.
We have all the other Megalodons, but not actually still out of our reach.
Yeah. OddHour?
There's one player. Campers, you can out-camp a camper. You could take them down one way or another. There's one type of person that I will never forgive. And if any of you are this type of person, a strain on our friendship will be created right now. If you are the kind of person who plays Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Online, and you just are in the process of losing, like you got launched, you have the animation where you're about to lose, and you shut off your Switch, I wish you nothing but pain and misery for the remainder of your days.
Oh.
You lost. Take the L, and let's both move on. Why the fuck should I have to not gain GSP for whooping your ass? Because you are just a salty little baby who can't lose GSP. Where?
You
Fuck
tell him.
you. I hate that shit with every fiber of my being.
You tell
I
him.
hate that.
They did that shit in Mario Kart too. I fuck that.
Oh my god. Like, dampering somebody else's experience because you're bad at the game and you lost is... You're a terrible person through and through, and you deserve nothing but pain. I'm... Like, I can't justify that. You can't justify that. It's ridiculously and unforgivingly selfish. That's it. That's the one. Everything else I can give or take.
Right.
I'll deal with anybody else. To an extent, of course. But that, zero tolerance.
Yes. For me, my answer is the same. Rage quitters. And let me tell you something. I remember this one instance when we just got a PlayStation 3 and we didn't have a lot of games, so we downloaded some stuff because we had PlayStation Plus, and I downloaded Sonic the Hedgehog 2 because it had online multiplayer for the versus mode, and I was playing somebody and I was beating him, and then he ends up like just rage quitting, and then he sends me a message. And he was sending me some homophobic remarks and tells me, go play a real game. And I'm like, are you serious? Come on. Like, you basically want to attack me knowing the fact that you weren't even winning in the first place? Again, like OddHour said, take the L. Just take the L. And that's it. Like, and play a real game? Oh, well, whatever real game you want me to play and play you in, there's a good chance I'll probably just beat you in that too, and you're going to be upset because you rage quitting is the equivalent to someone who who their mom buys them an ice cream from the ice cream truck. They slam it right in the floor and says, "No, I don't want that. Give me this one. I don't want the SpongeBob ice cream. Give me this Ninja Turtle ice cream. Oh, give me this Tweety Bird ice cream instead. I want that."
But I don't pistachio. Then why'd you ask for it?
Basically that. So Instead of rage quitting, I have 4 words for you. Shut the fuck up. Play a game and do better.
Also, don't be racist and tell people to kill themselves on the seas either when people are just trying to
that
dive
too.
on the ocean.
And
have you guys heard of a Twitter account called ScrubQuotesX?
Yes, I have, and they are very good at posting all those scrub quotes.
Ah, shit.
But I'm gonna say this right now. It's 2023. No more racism in online. No more homophobia, transphobia, any of that shit. If I catch you doing that in any of the games that I'm playing, you're gonna get blocked. I don't care who you are. You're not the type of person that I want in my life. Do not do that shit around me or any of my friends. You're gonna get blocked.
The report button exists for a reason.
Exactly.
And you should use it.
Well, no, I always use it whenever I get a chance because I am not in the mood to deal with that shit.
Yep. And now for the last question from Derek, and then that'll be it. Do you mostly play with AI/computer players or real players online local? Real players. Real players.
I prefer real players, but
Yeah.
like I grew up playing a lot of Mario Party by myself, so I'm okay with AI computers and things like that, but I would obviously prefer real players.
Yeah. And that's gonna do it. That's the end of this episode. Again, thank you guys for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
yeah, but
Same.
before we wrap things up, Mike, where can we find you?
You already know where to find me most of the part. You can find me at MMG Mike over on my YouTube channel, my Twitch channel, Twitch, all Instagram, Discord, all MMG Mike. Now that we have the Discord usernames, everything's MMG Mike.
Yeah, because now we got the
Or MMG Mike 22, one of the two. You'll find me, no problem.
Yeah, because now we got the new Discord username, so no more of those hashtags. Just get used to that. I'm going to have to update mine soon on social so that it won't have the hashtags anymore, but I'll do that later on. OddHour, where can we find you?
You can find me everywhere. I'm in your walls. No. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter. It's either OddHour or OddHour NYC. I don't have enough clout on Twitter to take OddHour from the person who has it. But on Instagram, it's odd_hour. It's pretty much just OddHour or OddHour NYC is where you will find me. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And Calkos, where can we find you?
I have a Twitter account. It's CRCalkos, CRCalkos. It's the worst Twitter account on Twitter, so I would recommend you don't follow it.
In other words, here you go. Follow it. And obviously, you could follow me everywhere. It's ShellshockPrime on every single platform, or at least most platforms. Daily variety streams from Monday to Thursday, either 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern, with the occasional Sundays. Usually Sundays we share with Shellshock. I got one more episode for the spring before we take a break for the summer, but it will be back in the fall afterwards. I'll figure it out what's it going to be, and it should be happening next week, so I'll give you guys details on that soon. So take care, everybody, and have a good one.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.